Orm had only been home for 3 days and she already wanted to scream. Her family's mansion, white pillars, fountains and all, had once been a magical place. As a child, it was her castle. As a teenager, it was a gilded cage. Now, freshly graduated and back for what was supposed to be a quiet break before figuring out her next move, it felt like a trap. Every hallway echoed with questions about her future. Every cup of tea came with a side of pressure. "I'm just saying," her mother May said that morning, stirring honey into her chamomile tea with maddening precision. "You're not getting any younger." "I'm 22, Orm muttered, scrolling through her phone at the breakfast table. "Exactly. And you've never brought home a single girlfriend across the table," her older brother beamed. Jin looked far too smug for someone wearing a pink linen shirt and flip-flops at 9 a.m. "I'm getting married," he announced like he was accepting an award. Orm blinked. "Wait, what?" "To Nisha. We just got engaged last night. Didn't I tell you?" "No, you didn't." Orm gaped, stunned. "You were dating her for 6 months?" "8, he said smugly, flashing his phone screen to show off the ring on Nisha's finger. "When you know, you know." Orm turned back to her toast. "Congratulations, I guess." Her mother, however, was practically glowing. "Isn't it wonderful? Nisha is so sweet. She's been helping with the garden already." May's tone turned suspiciously pointed. "It's nice to have someone reliable. Someone who contributes." There it was. Orm took a slow sip of her iced coffee, trying to stay calm. "You know," her Aunt Ern chimed in as she waltzed into the kitchen, "we could always set something up for you. There's that nice girl from the Chayporn family. Very elegant. Or what about Tita? She just came back from Paris. Orm nearly choked on her drink." "Wait, what?" "An arranged introduction," May said too casually. "It's what we used to do." "Worked out fine for your father and me." Jin grinned like he was watching his favorite soap opera. "We're just worried about you," May added. "You've never even mentioned a girlfriend. We don't want people to think you're one of those girls who only cares about horses and handbags." Orm felt a prickle of heat at the back of her neck. She pushed her chair back. "I have to make a call." She didn't. She went to the stables, to the only place in the mansion that still felt like hers. She didn't even ride. She just sat on the hay bales, arms folded over her chest, heart hammering. They were going to arrange something, set her up like some high society antique they needed to auction off. And they weren't even being subtle about it. "You've never even brought home a girlfriend." She had dated. Sort of. A few flings in college. Nothing serious, nothing official. No one she wanted to explain to her family. And now they were on the warpath. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She just stormed back into the house, hair wild from the wind, and declared loudly to whoever would listen, "I already have a girlfriend." Silence. May blinked. "You do?" "Yes," Orm said, clearing her throat. "Her name is Ling." That part, at least, was true. Ling. Her best friend since high school. Her partner in crime. Her protector. The person who picked her up at 3 a.m. when she had a breakdown over her final project. Cold, unreadable, drop-dead, gorgeous Ling. Orm's chest thudded. What the hell did I just do? "You're dating Ling?" May asked, blinking as if Orm had just announced she was moving to Mars. Orm nodded. "Yes." Ern squinted. "That tall girl with the nice shoulders?" "Very nice shoulders," Jin muttered, earning a swat from his fiancée, who had just entered the room and was now watching Orm with polite curiosity. Orm forced a smile. "We've been seeing each other for a while." "It's serious." May's hand flew to her chest like someone in a Thai soap opera. "Oh my God, how come we didn't know?" "We wanted to keep it private," Orm said quickly. "We didn't want to make a big deal out of it." Ern leaned in. "But you didn't even bring her home during school breaks." "She was traveling," Orm lied, and her voice cracked halfway through. "Internship. In Iceland." "In Iceland?" Jin repeated, incredulous. Very cold internships there, Orm muttered, but the Wi-Fi was good. May's eyes narrowed. This is why you never brought anyone home. It's not that deep, Orm said too fast. Ling and I just didn't want to be scrutinized. Scrutinized? Ern echoed, clearly delighted by the drama. You? We would never. Anyway, Orm said, waving her hand as if to physically clear the air. She's my girlfriend. I'm very happy, super in love, so you can all stop matchmaking now. Ern's grin stretched wider. This is incredible. May tilted her head. Then you'll bring her to dinner? Orm froze. Dinner? We're having a big family dinner tomorrow night. Everyone's coming in for the vacation. Your grandparents, your aunts, your Uncle Nop, even the twins. And now we can finally meet your girlfriend. Wait, what? Why is everyone? Jin leaned back. Didn't I tell you? Everyone's flying in for a short family holiday. Since I'm engaged now, they wanted to celebrate. And now we'll have 2 engagements to celebrate, Ern said, eyes twinkling. Orm's stomach dropped. No one said anything about not officially engaged, Orm corrected, panic rising in her throat like a wave. Just dating. But no one was listening anymore. Bring her to dinner, May said, already pulling out her phone. We'll set another place at the table. Actually, Orm started, but it was too late. Her mother was texting the chef, her aunt was whispering with Nisha about outfits, her brother was laughing into his wine glass. Orm walked calmly to the nearest corner of the kitchen, pulled out her phone, and called the one person who could fix this disaster. Ling picked up after 2 rings. Hey! Ling, Orm hissed. I told my family we're dating. A pause. You what? I didn't mean to. They were talking about setting me up with girls and arranging a marriage like I'm some Victorian spinster, and Jin said he was engaged and I panicked and I said you're my girlfriend, and now they think we're in love and they want to meet you at dinner tomorrow and please help me. Another pause, a longer one, then, okay. Okay? I'll do it, Ling said. Her voice was calm, steady, teasing. But I want something in return. Orm blinked. What? If I'm going to act like your girlfriend, I expect all the benefits, Ling said, including the bedroom kind. Silence. Orm's ears buzzed. You're joking. No, I'm not. Ling, you want this to be believable, right? Ling said. Then let's make it real. For everyone, including us. Orm's throat went dry. I'm a virgin. That's not a problem. I didn't say it was a problem. She lowered her voice. Are you serious right now? Ling laughed softly. Orm, I've taken care of you since we were 16. I'm the best option you've got. Think about it. I'd be your first, and I'd take good care of you. Orm wanted the earth to swallow her whole. I hate you. No, you don't. Orm exhaled through her nose. Fine. She hung up, then immediately dropped her phone and curled up in fetal position on the kitchen floor. Orm barely slept that night. She spent the evening pacing her enormous pink bedroom, imagining all the ways tomorrow could go wrong. Her mother was going to ask too many questions. Her grandmother would want to pinch Ling's cheeks and ask about grandchildren. Her aunts were going to analyze everything from Ling's shoes to her astrological sign. And Ling would be her usual unreadable self. Calm, cool, smirking, bedroom benefits. Just the memory of that phrase made Orm groan and throw herself face first onto the bed. What the hell had she agreed to? She'd known Ling since high school. They had met during a debate competition where Orm had cried backstage because her opponent was too aggressive, and Ling, competing for another school, had randomly handed her a juice box and told her to toughen up. It was the beginning of everything. Ling had a way of showing up when Orm needed her most. She helped her study. She helped her sneak out. She'd taken Orm's side every time she'd fought with her parents. When Orm's last almost relationship ended in a pathetic sob fest outside a club bathroom, Ling sat with her on the sidewalk until sunrise, feeding her fries and threatening to break the ex's nose. But Ling had also never crossed the line. She teased Orm, yes, flirted, maybe, but never in a way that felt real. Never like this. Now she was agreeing to pretend to be her girlfriend and demanding sex in return? Orm pulled a pillow over her face and screamed into it. The next afternoon, Orm stood at the edge of the mansion's circular driveway, heart jackhammering in her chest. She'd picked a pale yellow sundress, something innocent, something that said, "Look at me, I'm perfectly normal and definitely not lying to my entire extended family." She'd curled her hair, put on lip gloss, told herself to breathe at least 20 times. The sound of tires crunching over the driveway broke her out of her thoughts. Ling stepped out of the black car like a goddess descending from Olympus. Black jeans, white tucked-in shirt, long black hair pulled into a low ponytail. She looked effortlessly good, the kind of good that made Orm instantly feel like an awkward giraffe. "You're staring," Ling said as she walked up. "You're late," Orm muttered. "I'm exactly on time." "You said you'd come early to rehearse." Ling smiled, soft and slow. "You need to rehearse being my girlfriend?" "Yes." Ling took her hand. "Relax. I'll take the lead." She pulled Orm forward by the fingers, and Orm's heart nearly stopped. The warmth of Ling's hand in hers felt dangerously real. It felt good. "You don't have to," Orm started. Ling leaned in. "Orm, you panicked and told your billionaire Thai drama family that we're dating. You're lucky I'm even here." "Don't say it like that." "Then stop looking like you're about to pass out." "I'm fine," Orm said, her voice high and unconvincing. Ling brushed a strand of hair behind Orm's ear. "You look cute when you lie." Before Orm could explode, the front door flew open. "There you are," May said, descending the steps like a host on a variety show. "Ling, sweetheart, come in. I've been dying to meet you." Ling turned on the charm instantly. "Kun May, thank you for inviting me. Your house is beautiful." "Oh, what a nice voice," May said, visibly melting. "Orm always said you were polite, but I thought she was exaggerating." "I never exaggerate," Orm muttered. Ling grinned and squeezed her hand, still holding it. Inside, the grand dining hall was already filling up. The long table had enough seats for a small army. Grandparents, cousins, uncles, everyone turned when Ling and Orm walked in together. Orm could feel their eyes like lasers. Ling just smiled and bowed politely. "Sawadee ka," whispers, smiles, a few raised brows. Someone said, "Orm's girlfriend is so pretty." Orm considered diving under the table. They sat down. Dinner began. Questions flew. Ling answered everything with ease. Her major, business, her job, starting her own company, her hobbies, running, rescuing stray cats, volunteering, in disaster zones. Okay, maybe just 2 of those. Orm tried to breathe. Then someone, she didn't see who, said, "So now that Jin is engaged, it's so exciting that Orm is too." Ling paused, chopsticks halfway to her mouth. "Engaged?" Orm choked on her soup. May beamed. "Yes, Orm didn't tell us, but we figured it out. You've been together for years. It just makes sense." Ling looked at Orm. Orm looked like a deer in headlights. Then Ling smiled. "Yes, we're engaged." Orm dropped her spoon. The table erupted in excited gasps and claps. "Oh my God, I knew it!" Aunt Ern slapped the table, grinning. "I told May I felt it in my bones." 2 engagements in 1 week, May nearly squealed. "What perfect timing." "Did she propose?" "Or did you?" someone asked. "You seem like the romantic one, Ling." Orm opened her mouth to correct them, but Ling's fingers slid over hers under the table, pressing gently, a warning. She turned to the crowd and said calmly, "It was a mutual decision?" "Very modern," Ern nodded approvingly. "I want to see the ring," one of the younger cousins shouted. Ling raised her brows and looked at Orm, who blinked rapidly like her brain had short-circuited. We're still finalizing it," she said weakly. "Yes," Ling said smoothly. "It's being custom-made." Ern nodded like that was the most luxurious thing she'd ever heard. "Of course." Anything less would be unacceptable. Orm wanted to bang her head against the centerpiece. Across the table, Jin was giving her a smug, knowing look. "I always suspected something was going on," he said. "The way Ling always hovered around you like a guard dog." Ling chuckled. I'm very protective of what's mine. May looked like she was about to cry. My baby's all grown up. Speaking of, Ern said, reaching for her wine, if Ling's going to be family, she should stay with us for the vacation. Yes, May clapped. You're family now. We insist. I wouldn't want to impose, Ling started. Nonsense. May waved her off. We've already prepared the guest rooms. I'll have the staff put your things in Orm's room. Silence. Orm sat bolt upright. Wait, my room? Well, you're engaged, Ern said, laughing, unless you've suddenly turned shy? You're staying in her room anyway, right? May asked innocently. That's what you did in college? Orm's throat closed. We didn't dorm together, but you slept over all the time, Jin added with a snicker, only for movie nights. Which ended in the morning, Ern pointed out. Ling leaned back in her chair, utterly relaxed. I don't mind sharing. You're not sharing, Orm blurted. It's my room. Our room now, Ling said sweetly. Orm glared at her. Ling smiled back. Done then, May declared. I'll have the staff move in extra closet space and towels. Don't forget to warn them it's a war zone in there, Jin added. Shut up, Orm hissed. But the table was already moving on to desserts and wedding jokes. Jin and Nisha were suddenly in a heated discussion with the grandparents about venues. Someone mentioned matching dresses for the fiancés. Orm barely heard any of it. She was too busy spiraling, because tonight Ling was going to sleep in her room, in her bed, next to her, and if Ling meant what she said, bedroom benefits. Orm's thighs squeezed together under the table. Her face burned. Ling leaned toward her and whispered, just for her ears, You're turning pink. Stop talking to me, Orm hissed. You're thinking about tonight. No, I'm not. You're a terrible liar. Why are you doing this? She snapped. Ling's voice dropped lower, barely audible. Because you asked me to be your girlfriend. I'm just taking the role seriously, Orm's breath caught. She was flustered. She was irritated. She was excited? This was a terrible idea. The family dinner wrapped up with hugs and congratulations and far too many people touching Orm's arm and calling her fiancé. She didn't know how she made it up the stairs without tripping over her own anxiety. Inside her room, everything was the same and not the same. Her floral bed sheets, her childhood vanity, her posters, her stuffed rabbit, and Ling, who walked in behind her, took one look at the bed and said, It's small. It's queen-sized. Still small for two. You can sleep on the floor, Orm said automatically. Ling just gave her that look, that smug, quiet, devastating look. Don't worry, she said, dropping her bag by the window. I won't do anything you don't want me to. Orm crossed her arms. You said you wanted benefits. I do. But you won't. Only if you want it. Orm said nothing. Ling began unbuttoning her shirt. Orm turned around so fast she tripped over her own foot and face-planted onto the bed. Tonight was going to be hell. Or heaven. She hadn't decided yet. Orm lay stiffly on the left side of the bed, staring at the ceiling like it had personally wronged her. The lamp cast a soft golden glow over her room, warm and familiar, except nothing felt familiar now. Her hair was still damp from her nervous shower. Her heart hadn't stopped racing since Ling said, I won't do anything you don't want me to. But that was the problem, wasn't it? What if she did want her to? On the other side of the bed, Ling was scrolling through her phone, completely unbothered. Her dark hair was down now, damp at the ends, and she wore one of Orm's oversized t-shirts like it belonged to her. It said Moo Moo Farm, a souvenir from a kindergarten trip. On anyone else it would look ridiculous. On Ling it somehow looked hot. I can sleep on the floor, you know, Ling offered, not looking up. No, Orm said quickly. That would be rude. Ling smirked. So now you care about manners? I always care about manners. You also care about what your family thinks, Ling said, voice quiet now. You went through all this trouble just to avoid being set up. Orm shifted under the blanket. It's not just that. Oh? She paused. I didn't want to be pitied. or seen as incomplete. Everyone here is obsessed with being paired off, like it makes you valid or something. Ling finally looked at her. You don't need anyone to be valid. Orm rolled to her side, facing her. I know. But it's easier when I have you. For a second, the teasing faded from Ling's eyes. You've always had me. That's why I picked you, Orm said, barely audible. Because you're safe. That made Ling laugh softly. Orm, I'm the least safe choice. Orm didn't answer, because deep down, she knew Ling was right. Safe wasn't the right word. What she meant was familiar, comforting. And maybe also dangerous in the way that made her heart thump in her throat and her thoughts spiral in circles. She was a virgin. She'd never done more than kiss. She was supposed to be scared out of her mind, but right now, she wasn't scared. She was curious. Every time Ling shifted beside her, the mattress dipped and bounced slightly. Every time their arms accidentally brushed, electricity danced up her skin, and when Ling leaned back with a soft sigh and her shirt slid up just enough to reveal a sliver of smooth stomach, Orm sat up. Ling raised a brow. You okay? Orm wasn't, but she nodded. You're thinking too loud, Ling said, pulling the blanket up. I'm not thinking anything, Orm lied. You're thinking about what I said earlier. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Orm curled her knees to her chest. You're very smug for someone sleeping in a bed full of unicorn pillows. Ling looked over, eyes gleaming. They're adorable. They're judgmental. I think they're rooting for me. Orm groaned and flopped back down, yanking the blanket up to her chin. A long silence settled between them, heavy with unspoken tension. And then, Ling said softly, You know, we don't have to do anything tonight. Orm's breath caught. But if we do, Ling added, it won't be fake. Orm turned to face her again. What does that mean? It means I won't be acting. Ling's eyes were unreadable. Not when I touch you. Orm's throat went dry. The air shifted between them, dense and warm. Orm could feel her heartbeat in her teeth. You're just messing with me, she said, barely above a whisper. Ling didn't smile this time. You'll know the difference. Orm didn't sleep for a long time after that. She lay there, eyes wide, mind racing. Ling had turned off the light. The room was quiet, but she could feel her beside her, warm, steady, real. She wasn't sure what would happen. She wasn't sure what she wanted to happen, but she wasn't scared anymore, just waiting. Chapter 2. Orm lay in bed frozen, wide awake beneath the blanket, barely breathing. The room was dark, quiet, and full of tension, one kind of tension that made her toes curl. She heard the soft rustle of sheets beside her. Ling shifted slightly, her breathing calm but alert. Orm could feel her presence like a heat wave against her bare arm. Neither of them had spoken since the lights went out. Neither of them had touched. Until now. A slow movement. Ling's hand brushed against her thigh beneath the covers. Orm tensed. Her breath hitched. Then, softly, just above a whisper, Ling asked, Are you sure? That voice, confident but gentle, warm with just a touch of danger. It felt like being asked to jump off a cliff and knowing you'd be caught. Yes, Orm breathed. That was all it took. The space between them vanished. Ling rolled toward her, her hand sliding under Orm's loose sleep shirt. Fingers met bare skin, soft and unhurried. She traced slow circles on her hip, then slipped upward until her palm was cupping a breast. Orm arched into her without thinking. You're trembling, Ling whispered. I'm not, Orm lied, teeth catching her bottom lip. Ling's mouth found hers, silencing her with a kiss so devastatingly gentle it made her eyes sting. It was a kiss that said, I'm not going to rush you. I'm going to worship you. Orm had never been kissed like that. Their mouths moved together, lazy at first, then hungrier. Orm felt the slick heat build between her legs, her entire body hyper-aware of every brush of Ling's fingers, the press of her thigh, the heat of her breath. Ling broke the kiss only to tug Orm's shirt up over her head, discarding it onto the floor. Her lips trailed down Orm's neck, her collarbone, pausing to flick her tongue across a nipple until Orm gasped and clutched at her shoulders. "You're beautiful," Ling murmured, as if the words had weight. Orm didn't speak. She couldn't. Ling's kisses moved lower. Her mouth was at Orm's navel now, her hands spreading Orm's thighs apart. Orm hesitated only a second before letting them fall open, revealing everything. Her heart pounded in her chest like a war drum. Then came Ling's mouth, hot, slow, relentless. Orm cried out. Her thighs jerked as Ling licked her, dragging her tongue in long, deliberate strokes through her folds. Every flick made Orm tremble, her hips pushing up, seeking more. Ling held her still, pinning her down with strong hands, her tongue teasing, circling, then zeroing in on the little bundle of nerves that had Orm writhing. "Oh my God, Ling!" Ling hummed against her, sending vibrations that made Orm moan louder. Then she added a finger, just one, gentle but firm, pressing inside until Orm clenched. It stretched, it burned, but it also filled a place she hadn't known was empty. Another finger joined the first. Orm's breath hitched. "Ling." "Shh," Ling whispered, curling her fingers just right. Orm shattered. Her orgasm hit like lightning, fast and overwhelming. She bit her own wrist to muffle the scream, but it wasn't over. Ling moved up, wiping her mouth, then straddled her. Orm opened dazed eyes just in time to see her reach down, guide her slick center to rub against hers. Then Ling began to grind. It was slow at first, skin on skin, raw and burning, then faster, harder. The sound of their wet bodies slapping together filled the room. Orm could only hold on, clutching Ling's hips as the pressure built again. "I'm gonna," Orm whimpered. "Come for me," Ling growled. They climaxed together. Ling collapsed on top of her, both of them shaking, sweaty and breathless. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ling kissed her cheek and whispered, "You're mine now." Orm didn't deny it, because somewhere between that first kiss and the second orgasm, she had already given herself away. The sunlight spilled into the room through the tall windows, illuminating the tangled sheets and discarded clothes that told the story of last night. Orm stirred slowly, a dull ache throbbing deep between her thighs, a sharp, sweet reminder. She blinked against the brightness, stretching before flinching with a hiss. Every movement was a whisper of what Ling had done to her, soft, relentless kisses, fingers curling inside her, the hot press of their bodies as Ling rocked against her until they both lost control. Orm turned her head. Ling lay on her side, facing her, eyes still closed, one arm tucked under the pillow. Her long lashes fluttered faintly. She looked peaceful. Orm could hardly believe this was the same girl who had taken her apart with such controlled hunger just hours ago. Her best friend. Her fake girlfriend. Her something. Orm slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake her. She grabbed the silk robe that had fallen by the nightstand, wrapped it around her body, and padded into the hallway. The moment she left her room, the house greeted her with the smell of strong coffee, toast, and the distant sound of chattering voices from the morning crowd in the sitting room. She tiptoed toward the kitchen, but paused as she heard her name. "Oh, she's awake," Aunt Ern's voice chirped from around the corner. "And walking funny," came another voice, probably Aunt Fawn. Orm froze. "I'm telling you," Ern whispered, "there were sounds last night. Not TV, not even from her phone. Real sounds, like moaning. Oh God," Orm muttered, shrinking against the wall. "She sounded like she was enjoying herself," May added. "And Ling? Mister. The kind of girl who knows what she's doing, if you know what I mean." "Definitely a giver," Ern agreed, giggling like a teenager. Orm's entire face went red. Her ears felt like they might catch fire. "I bet it was her first time," May said dramatically. "She's always been so pristine." Orm's jaw dropped. "She had to learn sometime," Ern cackled. Orm backed away slowly, already horrified, when her brother Jin popped out of the kitchen holding a banana and smirking like the devil himself. "Well, well," he said. "Good morning, your royal loudness." "Shut up," Orm hissed. "Need some painkillers? Or an ice pack?" She shoved him with both hands, face burning. "Shut up." He only laughed and peeled the banana with exaggerated innocence. "You think you're funny? Oh, I know I'm funny. And I know the walls are thin." Orm turned and stormed away, robe flapping dramatically behind her. Behind her, she could still hear the aunts giggling, and somewhere inside, a new kind of panic bloomed, because this wasn't just pretend anymore, and last night, for a few breathless hours, she hadn't felt like she was acting at all. She ducked into the hallway bathroom, heart still racing, and splashed cold water on her face. What had she done? It wasn't that she regretted it, not really. Ling had been careful. Incredible, actually. But the way everyone was talking made her want to curl up into a ball and vanish. She met her own eyes in the mirror. "I had sex," she whispered aloud, blinking at herself. Her reflection didn't look that different. A little wild in the hair, a little flushed, but the same girl. The same Orm. Right? Wrong. Something had shifted. She felt it in her chest, in her bones. Ling hadn't treated it like some favor for a friend. She'd kissed her like she meant it, touched her like she mattered, and Orm had responded. She didn't fake those moans. She didn't fake the way her body chased Ling's fingers, Ling's mouth, Ling's hips. She let herself lean forward, bracing her arms on the sink, trying to breathe. A knock on the door startled her. "Orm?" came a soft voice. "It's me. Ling." Orm opened the door, and there she was, hair brushed now, a hoodie pulled over her head, looking sleepy and concerned. "You okay?" Ling asked. "Everyone heard us." Ling shrugged. "So?" "They're laughing. They're jealous. You're not helping." Ling tilted her head, then leaned down to murmur in her ear. "You didn't seem so worried about being overheard when you were begging me last night." Orm gasped and smacked her arm. "Ling," she laughed. "I'm kidding." "Sort of, ugh," Orm groaned, burying her face in her hands. Ling tugged her hands gently away. "Hey, I know this is new. I won't push, okay?" Orm nodded, eyes meeting hers, but neither of them said what they were really thinking, that it hadn't felt fake at all. The afternoon sun beat down on the backyard basketball court where Orm stood stiffly in borrowed sneakers, squinting up at the hoop like it was some ancient torture device. "Why are we doing this again?" she muttered, tugging her oversized t-shirt down for the 10th time. "Family bonding," Jin said, spinning the ball on his finger with way too much flair. "Come on, baby sis. It'll be fun. Nothing involving sweat and competition is fun." "I heard that," Ling said, appearing beside her. She looked maddeningly calm in a sports bra and joggers, her hair tied up in a ponytail that swayed as she walked. Orm's mouth went dry. "You look prepared." Ling smirked. "I don't do anything halfway." They split into teams, Orm and Jin on one side, Ling and a few cousins on the other. Orm had barely played a game of basketball in her life. Her idea of cardio was lifting a wine glass. But once the game began, she was too busy trying to survive to complain. Ling was a menace. She dribbled like a pro, her movements sharp and confident, weaving through bodies like they were cones. Every shot she took swished through the net with maddening precision. Orm, meanwhile, couldn't dribble to save her life. "Pass it," Jin shouted. "I am," Orm yelled back, throwing the ball randomly in Ling's direction. Ling caught it effortlessly, pivoted, and made a 3-point shot from near the sideline. "Show off," Orm muttered, impressed despite herself. "You're doing great," Ling called to her with mock enthusiasm. "I'm going to throw this ball at your face." "Better aim first." The cousins laughed, and Orm flushed but grinned. She hated how easily Ling could fluster her. Even more, she hated how much she liked it. Fawn leaned in close to Ling, practically hanging off her shoulder, laughing at something Ling said. It didn't matter what. Fawn could find a weather report funny if it meant batting her lashes and brushing someone's arm. Orm felt her spine stiffen. She took another sip of lemonade and grimaced. Too sweet. She turned toward the appetizer table, hoping to distract herself with cheese, but even from across the patio, she could still hear that obnoxious laugh. "She's laying it on thick, huh?" Jin sidled up beside her with a skewer of shrimp. "She's just being friendly," Orm said stiffly. "Oh, totally," Jin said, chewing. "Just friendly. Like when she asked me if Ling was single earlier." "What?" Jin smirked. "Kidding." Orm swatted his arm. "Okay, but seriously, you gonna do something about it?" he asked. "It's a fake relationship," Orm said through gritted teeth. "Sure, but does Fawn know that?" Orm ignored him and marched over toward the grill. "Hi," she said brightly, slipping her arm around Ling's waist. "There you are." Ling looked over, one brow arching. "Orm." "Introduce me to your friend," Fawn said, pouting slightly. "This is my girlfriend," Ling said flatly, eyes never leaving Orm. "Nice to meet you," Orm said with a smile that was mostly teeth. Fawn blinked. "Oh, wow. That's sweet, isn't it?" Ling added, then excused them both and tugged Orm gently away by the hand. They ended up near the flower beds, the party fading into background noise. "You okay?" Ling asked. Orm rolled her eyes. "Fine." "You didn't look fine." "I'm not jealous," Orm said quickly. Ling's face didn't change, but something cooled in her eyes. "Didn't say you were. I just didn't like the way she touched you." Ling nodded slowly. "Because?" "Because," Orm floundered, "it's disrespectful." "To the lie, that's what you're worried about?" "The lie?" Orm crossed her arms. "Why are you mad?" "I'm not mad," Ling said, voice flat. "You are. You always get like this when your feelings are hurt." Ling looked away. "Never mind. I forgot it's all pretend." Before Orm could answer, Ling walked off into the house without another word. And just like that, the warmth of the evening vanished. Orm stood frozen near the flower beds, the weight of Ling's silence settling over her like a wet blanket. She had never seen Ling walk away from her like that. Not like this. Not with that quiet finality. Was it that bad? She told herself she didn't mean it to sound cold. She just didn't want to admit it. How her chest tightened seeing someone else lean on Ling. How it felt like someone was taking something that didn't belong to them. She hated this, being confused, wanting things she wasn't supposed to want. She wandered to the edge of the garden, watching the shadows of her family dance between the lights. Her lemonade had gone warm in her hand. The fake part was supposed to protect her, let her enjoy being close to Ling without risking anything real. But it hadn't worked. Not since last night. Maybe not since long before that. Her fingers still tingled from where Ling had held her during the game. Her lips still remembered how Ling tasted, and now Ling thought she didn't care. Orm sighed and looked back toward the house. Ling was gone. Not physically, not yet. But Orm felt something slip away anyway. The stables sat at the far end of the property, quiet and sun-drenched, smelling of hay and leather and warm earth. Orm trudged there with purpose, head pounding with things she didn't want to admit. She needed an escape. Her heart was heavy, her face hot with embarrassment, and riding always helped clear her head. She saddled her favorite mare, a chestnut named Dara, and climbed up without waiting for help. The familiar rhythm of the horse beneath her gave her a small measure of calm, though her thoughts were anything but. Ling was mad, not fake mad, not teasing, really, truly hurt. And Orm had no idea how to fix it. She didn't understand why her words had come out so sharp. She had meant to sound logical, even casual. Instead, she sounded like she didn't care, and that couldn't be further from the truth. She loved that Ling got jealous. She loved it even more when Ling got possessive. But she had panicked when Ling asked if she was jealous, because she was, and that meant something she wasn't ready to face. Orm nudged Dara toward the back pasture, letting her trot along the dirt trail that looped behind the estate. The trees arched overhead, their leaves rustling softly, the breeze ruffling her hair. The wind cooled her skin, but not the ache in her chest. She pressed her heels and urged Dara into a gallop, faster, free, away from everything. And that's when it happened. The sudden snap of a branch. Dara reared in panic. Orm yelped and tried to hold on, but she was too late. Her hands slipped from the reins, her foot tangled in the stirrup, and the next thing she knew, the world was sideways, then black. She woke to the sound of someone shouting her name. Orm! Ling. Orm blinked, dazed, vision blurry as Ling dropped to her knees beside her. "Oh my God," Ling whispered, brushing hair from her face. "Orm, baby, what the hell were you thinking?" Orm groaned. Horse, tree, bad combo. Ling laughed shakily, though her eyes were wet. "You idiot! I'm fine. You are not fine. You're bleeding." Ling pointed to the scrape on Orm's arm and the mud on her leg. "You fell off a galloping horse. Are you trying to die before we even fake break up?" Orm winced as Ling helped her sit up. "You came." "Of course I came," Ling snapped. "You stormed off. Jin saw you head to the stables. You think I wouldn't follow you?" Orm looked away. "I thought you were done with me." Ling cupped her cheek. "I'm mad. I'm hurt. But I'm not done with you." Their eyes met. Orm's voice cracked. "I didn't mean what I said." Ling pulled her into a careful hug. "I know." And in that moment, with the fading sun casting gold on their tangled limbs in the dirt, Orm realized she was more than just sore from the fall. She was falling in a different way now. Orm leaned her weight against Ling's chest, her heart finally beginning to settle. The warmth of Ling's arms around her grounded her more than anything else could. "I didn't think you'd come," Orm murmured again, her voice smaller this time. Ling pulled back just enough to look her in the eye. "I heard you fell." My heart nearly stopped. Orm looked away. "I was stupid. You were hurting. I didn't mean to push you away." Ling reached for her hand and squeezed. "You think I don't know what it feels like to get scared?" Orm's throat tightened. "Scared of what?" "Of liking you too much," Ling said, "of it not being fake anymore." That silenced her. The world quieted around them. Just the chirp of crickets in the tall grass, the scent of horses and dust, and the sound of two people tiptoeing around a truth too big to name. "I guess we both suck at pretending," Orm said with a dry laugh. Ling smiled faintly. "Maybe that's a good thing." They sat like that for a few more minutes before Ling helped her stand. Orm limped slightly, her knee scraped and stiff. "We'll go slow," Ling said gently. "No more running away, okay?" Orm nodded, and just like that, they began walking back toward the house, slow, silent, and no longer pretending quite so well. Let's just pretend. Chapter 3. Chapter 3. Part 1. Recovery and Attention. Orm hadn't meant to make such a scene, but there she was, laid up in bed like some tragic heroine, her knee wrapped in a cold compress, pillows tucked behind her back, and Ling fussing over her like a nurse with a grudge. "I can feed myself," Orm muttered, reaching for the spoon. Ling smacked her hand away with a glare. "You can barely sit up. Open your mouth." Orm scowled but obeyed. The soup was hot, rich, homemade. Of course it was. Ling had probably bullied the kitchen staff into making it from scratch. "You don't have to do all this," Orm said between bites. "Yes, I do," Ling replied, brushing a stray hair from Orm's face with annoying tenderness. "Girlfriend duties, remember?" Orm's cheeks flushed. "Yeah, well, you're very committed." Ling only raised an eyebrow. "You say that like it's a bad thing." It wasn't. Not really. In fact, if Orm were honest, which she rarely was, especially with herself, she liked it. A little too much. The way Ling adjusted her pillows, the way she massaged Orm's calf when it cramped, the way she leaned in and whispered things that made Orm feel warm and dangerous all over. Their family passed in and out of the room, bringing flowers, snacks, concern. Everyone cooed over Orm and commented on how lucky she was to have such a devoted partner. "She never let anyone care for her like this," one of her aunts gushed. "She's glowing," another whispered. Orm wanted to hide under the covers and scream, not because it was fake, but because parts of it weren't. Ling wasn't faking the way she touched her, not all of it. That couldn't be fake. Later that afternoon, Ling came in with a basin of warm water and a towel. "What are you doing now?" Orm asked, eyeing the setup warily. "Cleaning your leg. You fell in mud, remember?" "I can do it." "You want your grandmother to walk in while you're flashing half the room?" "Sit still." Orm rolled her eyes but did as she was told. Ling knelt beside the bed, lifting the blanket and pulling up the hem of Orm's shorts with careful fingers. The cloth was warm and damp, and Ling's touch was maddeningly slow as she dabbed at the dried mud and faint bruising. Orm stared at the ceiling, trying not to squirm. "You okay?" Ling asked softly. "Peachy," Orm croaked. Ling smirked. "You always get this red when I touch you?" "Shut up. You're welcome." And just like that, Orm wasn't sure who was taking care of who anymore. After the cleaning, Ling gently laid a blanket over her leg and stood, brushing her hands off like she'd finished performing surgery. "Anything else?" Ling asked. "Craving mangoes? Ice cream? Emotional validation?" Orm groaned. "Maybe a little dignity?" "No can do." Doctor's orders. Orm pretended to glare at her, but it was hard to stay annoyed. Ling's brand of bossiness wasn't cruel. It was comforting. Like she was claiming Orm, shielding her from the world in her own overbearing way. There was a knock at the door, and Orm's grandmother poked her head in. "How's our princess?" "Recovering," Ling answered for her. "Thanks to her wonderful girlfriend," the old woman beamed. "You've been so good to her." Ling smiled, soft and polite, but Orm caught the glimmer of pride in her eyes. After her grandmother left, Orm sighed. "You're really leaning into this role." "I like a challenge," Ling said, plopping into the chair beside the bed. "Besides, I get to boss you around." "You do that even when we're not fake dating." "Exactly. Now it comes with cuddles." Orm rolled her eyes again but didn't object when Ling leaned in and tucked the blanket higher, brushing a kiss to her forehead. Her heart stuttered. She looked away, cheeks heating again. "You don't have to kiss me every time someone walks by." Ling shrugged. "Maybe I just want to." "Ling." "I'm playing the part, Orm." "That's what we agreed on, right?" "Right. That's what they agreed on." Then why did it feel like the lines were blurring so fast she could hardly breathe? Chapter 3. Part 2. Jealousy and Visitors. Orm was sitting propped up on a mountain of pillows when Earth arrived. He came bearing snacks and flowers, as if it were a real hospital visit, and his warm brown eyes widened in concern the moment he saw her leg. "Orm, are you okay?" he asked, rushing over to her side. "I'm fine," she said with a laugh, waving him off. "It was just a fall." "I'm milking it for attention." Earth chuckled and leaned over to hug her. "You scared the crap out of me." Before his arms could wrap fully around her, a shadow stepped between them. Ling. She didn't say a word, just stood there, towering and unreadable, eyes fixed on Earth like he'd just offered Orm poison. "Oh," Earth said, stepping back awkwardly. "Ling, right?" "Hi. Orm's told me a lot about you." Ling shook his hand with an iron grip. "Boyfriend?" Earth blinked. No. Just a friend." Ling smiled, thin and sharp. "Good." Orm groaned inwardly. Earth sat on the edge of the bed, oblivious to the tension. "I brought you those sesame cookies you like." "She can't have sesame," Ling interjected smoothly. "Doctor's orders." "Since when?" Orm said, frowning. "Since now," Ling said, taking the cookies and placing them on the nightstand out of reach. Earth looked between them, confused. "You two are really close, huh?" "Very," Ling said. "Actually," Orm cut in, "Earth's one of my oldest friends. He's harmless." Ling raised an eyebrow. "So was I once." Orm's cheeks flamed. Dinner was announced a few minutes later, and the family filed in to visit Orm before heading to the dining room. Ling sat on the bed beside her and promptly draped an arm around her shoulder, tucking her close. Orm stiffened. "What are you doing?" "Kissing my girlfriend," Ling whispered, and then she did. Soft, sweet, lips lingering against Orm's temple before brushing down to her cheek. Earth coughed awkwardly. Orm swatted at Ling, whispering, "You're doing too much." Ling kissed her again. "Not enough." Orm wanted to scream, and yet, later that night, when Earth was long gone and her lips still tingled from Ling's kiss, she couldn't stop herself from smiling. The room felt too small for the three of them. Earth, always sweet and sincere, tried to keep the conversation light, but Ling sat like a statue, every muscle taut, eyes flicking to Orm whenever she so much as smiled at Earth's jokes. "Remember our senior trip to Chiang Mai?" Earth asked, laughing. "You were so scared of the zip line you nearly cried." "I did not," Orm protested, grinning despite herself. "I just hesitated." "You screamed the whole way down." Orm was giggling now, leaning slightly toward Earth. She didn't notice the subtle shift in Ling's posture, how she straightened her back, how her hand slid from Orm's shoulder to her waist, fingers tightening ever so slightly. "I think it's time for your medicine," Ling said, cutting off the story. "I don't need—" "Yes, you do," she said firmly, already reaching for the pill bottle. She handed Orm the water, pressing it into her palm with just a bit too much force. Earth stood awkwardly. "I should probably let you rest." Orm opened her mouth to protest, but Ling spoke first. "Thanks for coming." Earth hesitated, clearly unsure whether to hug her goodbye again. He settled for a wave. "Get better soon, okay?" "Thanks," Orm said quietly, watching him go. The door shut behind him with a gentle click. Orm turned to Ling. "Really?" Ling didn't answer right away. She poured herself a glass of water from the pitcher on the bedside table. "I don't like the way he looks at you. He's a friend. So was I, remember?" Orm folded her arms. "You're being ridiculous." Ling finally met her gaze. "Maybe. But I'm not sharing you." The words hit like a stone thrown in a pond, unexpected, sharp, rippling outward. Orm didn't know what to say. Later, as Ling helped her lie back down, fluffing the pillows again and tucking the blanket up to her chest, Orm tried to ignore the flutter in her chest. She hated the possessiveness. She hated that she loved it more. Chapter 3. Part 3. Mixed Signals. The next morning, Orm found herself alone in her room for the first time since the fall. Ling had gone to take a work call, and without her presence, the room felt oddly still. Quiet in a way Orm didn't like. She sat up slowly, testing her leg. It ached, but the swelling had gone down. Ling's constant care, bossy and relentless, had worked. Not that she would admit that out loud. She reached for the juice Ling had left on the nightstand. It had a little sticky note on it with a heart drawn in red pen and the words, "Drink me." Or else Orm snorted. When Ling returned 10 minutes later, dressed in a sleek black blouse and jeans that made Orm's brain stall for a second, she didn't come alone. She had a tray of breakfast balanced perfectly in one hand and a smug smile in the other. "You're going to spoil me," Orm said, as Ling set the tray down and adjusted the pillows behind her. "I'm just being a good girlfriend." "Fake girlfriend," Orm corrected. Ling leaned in close. "Fake doesn't mean I don't know how to take care of you." Orm's breath hitched. "That's what I wanted to talk to you about." Ling raised an eyebrow. "You're overdoing it." Ling froze, just slightly. "Overdoing what?" "The kisses. The hand-holding. The forehead kisses in front of my mom." Ling blinked once. "You said you wanted this to be believable." "There's believable, and then there's you acting like you're actually in love with me." Ling looked at her for a long moment. "Would that be so bad?" Orm's stomach flipped. "It's just confusing." Ling's face softened. "Is it really that confusing? Or do you just not want to admit you like it?" Orm didn't answer. She couldn't, because Ling was right. She did like it. Too much. And that was the problem. Ling leaned down and pressed a kiss to her temple. Not performative, not because anyone was watching. Just soft. Just for her. "I'll tone it down," she whispered, "if it makes you uncomfortable." Orm grabbed her wrist before she could pull away. I didn't say I hated it. Ling smiled. Good. Ling sat on the edge of the bed, her knee bumping gently against Orm's thigh. So, how exactly should a fake girlfriend act then? Orm opened her mouth, closed it again. Less like you mean it. Ling tilted her head, feigning confusion. Mean what? You know, Orm mumbled, fiddling with a thread on the blanket. Like you actually care. The words came out sharper than she intended, and she winced the second they left her lips. Ling didn't flinch. Maybe I do care. Orm looked at her then, really looked, at the way Ling's posture had stiffened, the way her fingers twisted in her lap. Not their usual cocky bravado, not a tease, just honesty, quiet and terrifying. I don't know what to do with that, Orm admitted. You don't have to do anything, Ling said gently. I'll back off. But I don't want you to back off, Orm blurted. I don't know what this is. Ling leaned closer, her voice low. What if we stop pretending for a second? Orm's heart galloped in her chest. And then what? Ling brushed her fingers down Orm's arm, barely a touch. And then nothing. We just breathe. And so they did. They sat in silence for a long time. Ling's hand curled over Orm's. The world outside went on, birds chirping, distant laughter from the gardens, but in that room, it felt like everything had paused. I don't hate it, Orm finally whispered. Any of it. Ling didn't smile this time. She just held her hand tighter. Good. She didn't need to say more. Neither of them did. That one word was enough to hang between them like a promise they weren't ready to make, but also couldn't quite deny. Chapter 3. Part 4. What the Heart Knows. The sun was warm in the garden, golden light filtering through the swaying branches above. Orm sat on a bench near the koi pond, a blanket over her legs and a cushion at her back. Her great-grandmother sat beside her, humming to herself as she fed the fish crumbs from a cracker. Ling's taking good care of you, the old woman said suddenly. Orm blinked. You remember Ling? Her great-grandmother squinted at her. She's the one with the pretty eyes and the dangerous smile, right? Orm laughed softly. That's her. She watches you like she's scared you'll vanish, the old woman said, tearing another piece of cracker and tossing it into the pond. Orm didn't respond right away. She watched the koi dart for the crumbs, mouths open, scales shimmering. It was easier than looking at her great-grandmother's sharp, knowing gaze. I don't know what I'm doing, Orm confessed. With her? With everything. Orm picked at a loose thread in the blanket. She's my best friend. I'm supposed to be faking a relationship, but it doesn't feel fake, and that terrifies me. Her great-grandmother was quiet for a moment. I was engaged once, she said finally, to a man my parents chose. He was decent, kind. But then I met a girl in the village who made my heart beat like thunder. Orm looked over at her, startled. She worked at the market, her great-grandmother said, her eyes far away now. She used to put extra fruit in my basket when no one was looking. What happened? The old woman shrugged. I did what I was told. Married the decent man, had children, lost him to the war, never saw the girl again. Orm swallowed hard. Do you regret it? Every single day, her great-grandmother whispered. But I made peace with it. You, though, you still have time to choose what's real. Orm stared at her lap. I think I'm in love with her, she said softly. Her great-grandmother patted her hand. Sweetheart, that was obvious the moment you started smiling at her soup. Orm laughed, then cried a little, and for the first time in days her chest didn't feel so heavy. Her great-grandmother chuckled, her voice creaky like an old wooden floor. You know what they don't tell you about love? It's not about butterflies or passion. It's about who you trust when you're hurting, who brings you soup and brushes your hair when you feel like a wreck. Orm swallowed the lump in her throat. She does that. All of it. And then some. The old woman gave her a sideways glance. Then what's stopping you? I don't know, Orm said truthfully. Maybe I'm scared that if I say it out loud, it'll ruin everything. What if she doesn't really feel the same? What if it's just part of the act for her? Darling, if that girl is acting, she deserves an award, her great-grandmother said dryly. The way she looks at you? That's not pretend. The wind shifted gently through the trees, rustling the leaves overhead. The koi fish beneath the surface flicked their tails, creating little ripples that reached the edges of the pond and back again. I used to think love was supposed to be fireworks, Orm murmured. Explosions. Drama. Her great-grandmother shook her head. Love is when someone holds your hair while you throw up. Love is sleeping on the floor because you're sick and too hot to share a bed. It's steady, it's strong, it's real. Orm leaned her head on her great-grandmother's shoulder. They sat that way in silence for a while, the old woman's warmth grounding her. You think I should tell her? Orm asked. I think you already have, she replied. Orm looked up. What do you mean? You told me all the ways she makes you feel safe. That's how it starts. Safety, then need. Then one day, you realize you don't want to go a single day without her. Orm didn't say anything after that. She just listened, to the wind, to the water, and to her heart, which was suddenly very loud. Chapter 3. Part 5. The friend who knows Melissa arrived just before sunset, breezing into the room with iced coffee in one hand and a tote bag slung over her shoulder. She wore oversized sunglasses even though it was nearly dark out, and her perfume announced her presence before she spoke a word. Orm, she cooed, rushing to her side. You poor thing. You look like a wounded princess. Orm groaned. Why does everyone keep saying that? Because you do. All dainty and tragic, Melissa plopped onto the armchair by the window, crossing her legs like she owned the place. And where's your devoted knight in denim and charm? Ling's helping set up for dinner. Melissa smirked. Of course she is. Always the dependable one, Orm shifted uncomfortably, reaching for her water glass. She's just helping out. Melissa said, unconvinced. You know, I still can't believe you and Ling are together. I thought she was strictly casual. Orm flinched. What's that supposed to mean? Melissa shrugged. Just saying. I've known her for years. She's never done the girlfriend thing. Closest she got was hooking up with a girl 3 weekends in a row. That's not exactly news. No. But this? Melissa leaned forward. Ling playing nursemaid? Ling sleeping in your bed? This is a whole new level. Orm's cheeks warmed. We're trying something new. You're brave, Melissa said, sipping her coffee. I always figured the safest way to love Ling was to stay her friend. That way she couldn't break your heart. Orm looked down at her lap. Melissa tilted her head. You didn't think she'd ever take a girl seriously, did you? No, Orm admitted. I thought if I ever wanted to keep her, I'd have to pretend I didn't want more. Melissa softened. But you do want more. Orm didn't answer. She didn't have to. Melissa reached out and squeezed her hand. For what it's worth, I think she's already yours. She just doesn't know how to say it yet. Outside, the cicadas sang, and inside, Orm sat with the weight of those words pressing on her chest like something dangerous and beautiful all at once. Orm hesitated. You make it sound like a bad idea. Melissa raised her brows. It's not bad. It's just risky. Ling's not known for playing the long game, you know? She's different with me. Exactly, Melissa said, pointing with her straw. That's what makes it scary, isn't it? Because if she's different with you, then this could be real, and if it's real, it could break you. Orm sighed and looked out the window. The evening light slanted across the room, painting everything gold. I keep thinking about that night she stayed with me after I fell. She didn't just help me. She stayed. She tucked me in. She made me laugh. Melissa watched her quietly. And I liked it, Orm whispered. I liked how it felt. Safe. Like home. Orm, Melissa said, softer now. I've known you since we were what, 12? I've never seen you look at anyone the way you look at her, Orm gave her a sheepish smile. Do I really look that pathetic? No, you look like someone who finally figured out what she wants. That's not pathetic. That's terrifying, and kind of beautiful. There was a knock at the door before either of them could say more. Ling stepped in, tray in hand, carrying 2 plates of food and a bottle of sparkling water tucked under one arm. I figured you'd be hungry, Ling said, eyeing Melissa with wary politeness. Melissa stood. Perfect timing. I was just about to steal her away forever. Ling didn't smile. Not on my watch. Melissa winked at Orm on her way out. Good luck, lover girl. When the door shut behind her, Ling turned to Orm. Everything okay? Orm nodded, suddenly shy. Yeah, just talking. Ling set the tray down and handed Orm her plate. Their fingers brushed, and for a second, Orm forgot how to breathe. And maybe, just maybe, that was the moment she stopped pretending. Let's just pretend. Chapter 4. Part 1. The Party Plans. Orm stirred her tea slowly, eyes fixed on the rippling liquid as her family chattered excitedly around her. The long table in the sunroom buzzed with voices. May, Ern, Neen, all speaking over each other about color palettes, flower arrangements, and invitation fonts. Her brother's engagement had barely settled in, and now they were planning hers, or what they thought was hers. And we'll announce it officially at the garden party next Saturday, Aunt Ern was saying. It'll be tasteful but festive, nothing over the top. We want it to feel intimate, her mother added, flipping through a fabric swatch book, but elegant, a proper celebration for a proper couple. Orm's grip tightened on her teacup. Don't you think it's a bit soon? Neen waved her off with a dramatic sigh. Darling, when you know, you know. And you and Ling, well, it was always obvious. Across the table, Ling looked completely at ease. She sat back in her chair, one arm slung casually over the backrest, watching the entire operation with faint amusement. When she caught Orm's eye, she gave her a wink. Orm's stomach did a backflip. Later, in the hallway away from the family swarm, Orm rounded on her. You could have said something. You're letting them plan a full engagement party. Ling shrugged, smug. Why would I stop them? I'm having fun. Fun? This is supposed to be fake. Ling stepped closer, eyes glittering. You want me to act like your fiancé? I'm doing a great job. You're the one blushing every time I hold your hand. Orm scoffed. I'm not blushing, it's just hot. It's air-conditioned. Then it's… Shut up, Ling. Ling laughed, low and easy. You're cute when you're defensive. Orm turned away, annoyed at how fast her pulse was racing. Ling followed behind her, voice dropping an octave. You know, if this were real, I'd be even worse. I'd kiss you in front of everyone, hold you like you're mine, maybe even slip a hand under the table just to make you squirm. Ling, Orm hissed. Ling grinned, completely unrepentant. Just saying, I'm committed to the role. Orm stalked off, heart thudding in her ears. This was fine. It was just Ling being Ling, just a game, so why did it feel more real every time she looked at her? Orm forced a smile as Neen started discussing what kind of music the quartet should play when guests arrived. Nothing too modern, she declared. We don't want that boom-boom stuff. Boom-boom stuff? Orm muttered. Ling leaned over. You heard her, no boom-boom, baby. Orm elbowed her under the table, cheeks glowing. Stop. May was scribbling notes in her wedding planner. We'll need a full floral arch, maybe jasmine and orchids. Orm's allergic to roses, right? She sneezes like a gremlin, Ling supplied helpfully. Orm's mouth dropped. Ling? I find it charming, she added, voice syrupy sweet. Ern glanced over the rim of her glasses. We'll need matching outfits, coordinated at least. You two have such different palettes. Maybe a soft lavender theme? Lavender's romantic, Neen sighed wistfully, very suitable for two young lovers. Orm glanced at Ling, who was pretending to be deeply engrossed in a piece of pineapple tart. She looked maddeningly pleased with herself. After a full hour of chaotic planning, Orm finally escaped with Ling in tow. The moment they stepped into the hallway, Orm turned around and pressed a finger into Ling's chest. "You think this is hilarious, don't you?" Ling smiled. "Too close." "A little." "They're picking out invitation fonts. They think this is real." "Well, they're not wrong." Orm blinked. "What does that mean?" Ling shrugged. "It means you're playing pretend, but I'm starting to think you like it." "I don't." Ling's eyes softened, and she brushed a strand of hair behind Orm's ear. "Liar." Orm froze. The hallway was quiet, but the sound of her heartbeat filled the space. She stepped back, clearing her throat. "You're impossible." "And yet you agreed to be my fiancé," Ling murmured. "Strange, isn't it?" Orm turned away before her smile could betray her. She told herself again what she always did. Ling was dangerous. Ling could break her. Staying friends was safer, cleaner. So why was her heart already acting like it belonged to her? Chapter 4. Part 2. The Fiancé Reveal. The next afternoon, Orm stood stiffly at the front steps of the mansion, watching as a sleek black car pulled into the circular drive. The tires barely crunched on the pristine gravel. She smoothed her dress for the third time and told herself to breathe. "They're just your friends," she muttered. "They're about to meet your fiancé," Ling added cheerfully beside her, slinging an arm across Orm's shoulders. "Big moment. Please behave." "I always behave." "That's the problem." Before Ling could answer, the car door opened and 3 of Orm's old school friends spilled out: Ploy, Min, and June. All 3 were stylish, smiling and glittering with accessories that screamed old money and petty chaos. "Orm!" Ploy squealed, rushing forward to wrap her in an unnecessarily tight hug. "It's been forever." Min stepped up next. "You look amazing. Post-college glow-up?" "And this must be Ling," June said, looking her up and down like she was a painting in a gallery, one she very much wanted to steal. Ling offered a charming smile and shook each of their hands. "Nice to finally meet the people who survived school with her." "Oh, we didn't survive, we conquered," Ploy declared. "Orm's always been the prettiest and the grumpiest, but now look at her, glowing. You must be doing something right." Ling smiled. "I try." Orm stepped in. "Why don't we sit in the garden? Tea's set up." They walked toward the patio, and Orm could practically hear the girls' thoughts buzzing. Every time Ling poured a cup of tea or laughed at a joke, someone leaned a little closer. Compliments flew like butterflies, about Ling's hair, her smile, her arms. And Ling, the traitor, was loving it. Orm sat silently, her grip tightening on the edge of her saucer. June giggled at something Ling said and touched her arm lightly. "You're so funny. Are you sure you're really engaged? You seem too charming to be taken." "Unfortunately for you, she is," Orm said, her voice just a little too loud. Everyone turned to her. Orm blinked. "I mean, she's mine, officially." Ling raised an eyebrow. "Aw, baby, you jealous?" Orm stood abruptly. "I'm going to check on my horse." And she stormed off before her ears caught fire. Min leaned in close, eyes sparkling. "So, Ling, what do you do when you're not looking ridiculously good beside Orm?" "I run a small logistics company," Ling said casually. Ploy's brows lifted. "Brains and biceps. Damn, Orm, you always did aim high." "Ling's always been good at everything," Orm muttered, unsure if it was pride or irritation in her own voice. June was shameless. "You work out, right? I mean, obviously. You have that I could lift a car if I needed to vibe." Orm glared into her teacup. Ling smirked, glancing sideways at her. "I try to stay in shape. I like being useful." "Bet you're very useful," June said, eyes raking slowly over Ling's form. Orm couldn't take it. She dropped her spoon with a clatter. "Wow, June, I didn't realize this was speed dating." June blinked, faux innocent. "I was just being friendly." "Friendly doesn't require drooling." "Orm," Ling said softly, but there was a hint of amusement in her tone that only made it worse. "And you—" Orm turned to Ling, eyes narrowing. "Could maybe act like you're taken?" Ling leaned back, clearly enjoying herself. "I didn't realize you needed me to prove it." "Oh, I'll prove something." Orm muttered and stood, cheeks hot, throat tight. Ploy blinked. Where are you going? To breathe, and to visit someone who doesn't flirt with my fiancé every 5 seconds. Who? Min asked, bewildered. My horse, Orm snapped, and stormed off across the yard. She didn't look back, but she felt their eyes on her, the laughter, the whispers, Ling's smirk. It made her skin prickle and her chest feel tight. She told herself she was being ridiculous. This was fake. Ling didn't owe her anything, so why did it feel like Ling had betrayed her? By the time she reached the barn, her hands were trembling. Chapter 4. Part 3. The Barn. The barn was quiet, dimly lit by the slats of golden sunlight cutting through the gaps in the wood. Orm paced between the stalls, her boots crunching softly over the straw-strewn floor. Her mare lifted her head at the sound, ears flicking, but Orm didn't approach her yet. She needed to breathe. The scent of hay, leather, and dust helped clear her head more than anything else had all day. She leaned against a wooden beam and let her eyes close. How dare Ling smile at them like that, laugh at their flirty comments like it was funny? They were supposed to be faking this thing, not turning it into some seductive show. And then there were the looks, those soft, unreadable gazes Ling kept throwing at her when she thought no one was looking. It was driving her insane. Footsteps crunched behind her. I said I wanted to be alone, Orm called out, not turning around. Ling's voice was calm but firm. You fell off a horse the last time you stormed off. I'm not taking any chances. Orm clenched her jaw and still didn't face her. Go back to your fan club. There was a pause. Then Ling said quietly, Why are you really upset? Orm spun around. Are you serious? They were all over you. And I handled it, Ling said. I didn't flirt back. Not really. You didn't have to. Just existing was enough. Ling stepped closer. You sound jealous. I'm not jealous, Orm snapped. This is all fake. You're not supposed to make it harder for me. Ling's eyes darkened. Harder how? Orm swallowed. You know how. For a second they stood in silence, then Ling moved. 1 step, 2, until she was right in front of her. You want me to stop making it real, Ling murmured, but every time I look at you, it already is. Orm's breath caught. Don't! Ling kissed her. It wasn't soft. It wasn't hesitant. It was a claiming. Orm's hands hit Ling's chest to push her away, but stayed there. Her knees weakened. When Ling deepened the kiss, Orm made a sound in her throat and gave in completely. Orm's breath was ragged when they pulled apart. This isn't fair. Ling pressed their foreheads together. Nothing about this has been fair since you asked me to play pretend. Orm's voice trembled. I can't do this if you keep making me feel like it's real. But it is, Ling whispered. You just don't want to admit it. Orm's eyes shimmered with unshed emotion. She tried to step away, but Ling held her waist firmly. Tell me to stop, Ling said, and I will. Orm opened her mouth, but the words didn't come. Instead, her hands slid up Ling's chest, knotting in her shirt. Ling kissed her again, slower this time, hands drifting down to Orm's hips, guiding her backward until Orm's back hit the wooden stall wall. The scent of hay surrounded them, thick and earthy. Orm gasped as Ling dropped to her knees, fingers trailing up her thighs beneath the edge of her dress. Ling, she tried, weakly. Shh, Ling murmured, hooking her fingers around the hem of Orm's underwear and sliding them down. Let me take care of you. Orm's head dropped back against the wood with a soft thud as Ling leaned in and kissed her inner thigh. Then her mouth found Orm's center, soft and hot and slow at first. Deliberate. Orm let out a broken sound, her fingers tangling in Ling's hair. Ling sucked gently, then flicked her tongue in slow circles, gradually building speed. When Orm started trembling, she slid 1 finger inside, then 2. Orm whimpered. It's too much. You're perfect, Ling whispered, thrusting her fingers carefully while her mouth kept working. When Orm cried out and came, her legs nearly gave out. Ling stood quickly and caught her, kissed her again, this time tasting her on her lips. Orm blinked through the haze. What now? Ling smirked. Now it's your turn to lie down. She laid Orm on a bed of hay, climbed on top of her, and pressed their bodies together. Orm moaned as their centers touched. Ling rocked into her slowly, then harder, their slick skin sliding, grinding. Orm's hands grabbed blindly at her shoulders, her thighs, her back. They moved together faster, the barn filled with soft gasps and desperate moans. They came together, tangled, breathless, and finally quiet. For a long moment, they just lay there. Ling brushed Orm's damp hair from her face. "You can keep pretending if you want." Orm didn't answer, but she didn't let go either. Chapter 4, Part 4. Aftermath. They didn't speak at first. Orm lay on her back in the soft hay, her dress rucked up around her waist, her chest rising and falling fast. Ling was beside her, one arm flung casually behind her head like they'd just finished a nap instead of whatever that had been. Outside, birds chirped, and somewhere far off someone called for tea. Ling turned her head. "You okay?" Orm nodded slowly, then shook her head. "I don't know." Ling propped herself up on one elbow and looked down at her. "That was something." Orm glanced away. "You're not going to make a joke?" "Not this time." Silence stretched between them again, thick and fragile. Finally, Orm sat up and started fixing her dress. Ling watched her but didn't move. "I'm not good at this," Orm muttered. "Feelings, talking." Ling reached out and tucked a piece of hay from her hair. "You're doing fine." "I just wanted you to stop being so good at faking it." Ling's brow furrowed. "Is that what you think I'm doing?" Orm didn't answer. Ling sat up. "I'm not faking. I haven't been faking anything since the day you looked at your family and said I was yours." Orm's eyes snapped to hers. "I want this," Ling said simply. "But I'm not going to push you." Orm looked away, her voice barely audible. "I don't know what I want." Ling stood, brushing hay from her clothes. "Then figure it out, but don't take too long." She offered her hand to help Orm up. Orm took it. Back at the house, no one seemed to notice their absence, or if they did, they pretended not to. Orm's mother was laughing in the garden with guests. Her cousins were taking selfies. Everything looked exactly the same. Only Orm felt different, like her skin no longer fit quite right. As she walked beside Ling, their hands brushed. She didn't pull away. As they walked the dirt path back toward the house, Orm kept sneaking glances at Ling from the corner of her eye. She looked calm. Too calm. Like she hadn't just turned Orm inside out in the barn. "You're quiet," Ling said softly without looking at her. "I'm thinking." Ling nodded. "Thinking if it was a mistake?" Orm hesitated. "Thinking if I can survive this." Ling's gaze flicked to her, sharp and unreadable. "I don't mean that in a bad way," Orm added quickly. "Just, you're intense." "I've always been intense." "I know, but before it wasn't aimed at me." They reached the back porch. Pausing just before the steps, Ling turned to face her, her voice quieter now. "You don't have to be scared of me." "I'm not." "You are." Orm crossed her arms. "I'm scared of what I want, and I'm scared that maybe you're not just faking anymore either." Ling didn't smile this time. "You're right." Orm's stomach twisted. "Then what happens now?" "Now?" Ling said, brushing her fingers along Orm's wrist gently. "You stop lying to yourself." They walked into the house side by side, not touching. The chaos of the gathering swallowed them up. Music playing, food being laid out, relatives chattering in clusters across the patio. Orm's aunt saw them and waved. "There you two are. We were just saying how inseparable you've become, like real soulmates." Someone else clapped. "Get used to hearing that at the party." Orm gave a tight smile. Ling just nodded politely, but her eyes kept flicking to Orm, checking, measuring. Orm excused herself and retreated to the kitchen. She needed a glass of water. Maybe 10. But the second she was alone, she pressed her fingers to her lips. They still tingled. Maybe she was in trouble. She poured a glass, sipped, and told herself to stop thinking. It didn't work. Chapter 4, Part 5, Denial is a warm blanket. Orm had always considered herself good at pretending she wasn't anxious when her mom nagged her about being single, pretending she didn't notice how often her eyes drifted to Ling's lips when they laughed, pretending that sharing a bed with her best friend didn't set her body on fire. So when she woke up the next morning and acted like nothing had happened in the barn, she thought she was doing pretty well. She brushed her hair, picked a yellow sundress, and smiled through breakfast like she hadn't cried out Ling's name with her fingers tangled in her shirt. Ling, meanwhile, was a problem. She kept watching Orm like she was trying to read her mind, or her heart. Calm, unreadable Ling. But there was heat in her gaze now. Pressure. When their hands brushed, Ling didn't look away. Neither did Orm. "Morning, girls," Aunt Nita said, passing through the dining room. "Sleep well?" Orm nearly choked on her juice. Ling didn't even blink. "Very." Orm coughed harder. Throughout the day, it only got worse. Everyone noticed something was different. Her grandmother smiled at them too knowingly. Her cousin May kept asking if she and Ling had picked colors yet. Ploy sent a message that said, "You looked flushed yesterday, I hope the horse ride was worth it." And still, Orm held on to her illusion of control. She stayed busy. She helped arrange decorations for the party. She pretended not to see Ling's eyes lingering on her. She refused to react when Ling wrapped an arm around her waist during a photo. But her heartbeat wouldn't listen. Later that evening, she found herself sitting under the big mango tree behind the stables, hugging her knees. She thought about everything Great-Grandma had said about love and fear and holding back. Was she still holding back? Or had she already fallen, and now she was just pretending she could get back up? By mid-afternoon, Orm was balancing a tray of lemonade glasses, while Ling hung lanterns overhead on the patio string lights. Every time Ling stretched upward, shirt riding up just slightly, Orm nearly walked into something. "You good?" Ling asked, catching her staring. "Great." Orm replied too quickly. "Why wouldn't I be?" Ling smirked and jumped off the stool. "You tell me." Orm thrust a glass at her. "Hydrate. You're sweating all over the decorations." Ling accepted it but didn't break eye contact. "You're doing that thing again." "What thing?" "The thing where you act like everything's normal, even when your cheeks are pink and you keep avoiding looking at my mouth." "I do not." "You do," Ling said simply, sipping. "It's cute." Orm's whole body flushed. She stomped back to the drinks table before she said something embarrassing. From across the garden, her mother watched them with narrowed eyes and a growing smile. Then she pulled her phone out, snapping a quick picture like they were already married in mid-honeymoon glow. Orm escaped to the kitchen where Great-Grandma was peeling fruit. "Sit," the old woman said without looking. "I'm fine." "Sit anyway." Orm sat. The old woman passed her a slice of mango. "You've got that restless look in your eyes, like your heart's tripping over something." Orm nibbled on the mango. "Maybe." "Is it love?" "I don't know what it is." "Then it's probably love. The things we can't name are always the most dangerous." Orm frowned. "And what do I do with it?" Great-Grandma shrugged. "Let it scare you, then let it carry you." That night, when the fairy lights blinked on and the garden looked like something out of a wedding catalog, Orm watched Ling laugh with her cousins from a distance. She looked so at home. Orm pressed a hand to her chest, trying to make it slow down. She couldn't pretend forever. Let's just pretend. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. Part 1. Unscheduled guest Orm was rearranging her desk when Ling wandered into her room, towel around her neck and hair still wet from a midday shower. "You're cleaning?" Ling asked, raising an eyebrow. "Are you sick?" Orm glanced over her shoulder. "No, I'm expecting someone." Ling's playful expression disappeared. "Who?" "Earth. He's stopping by." Ling leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Why?" Orm grinned to herself, enjoying the shift in Ling's tone. "Because he asked me to design a website for his photography portfolio." Ling blinked. "You're doing his website?" "Yes, I have a degree in design now, remember? And he liked my final project." Ling walked into the room slowly, like testing the floorboards. Since when do you do freelance work for guys who've been in love with you since high school? Orm snorted. Oh my God, are you jealous? I'm skeptical, Ling replied, narrowing her eyes. He just wants a clean, simple layout. He has a logo idea, some sample photos, and a whole folder of references. This is actual work, Ling. Right. Orm grabbed her laptop and flipped it open. You can say it, you know. Say what? That you don't like him. Ling didn't answer, just started pacing. I think it's funny, Orm teased. You, acting territorial. I'm not acting territorial. You're literally pacing. Ling stopped. I just don't see why you couldn't refer him to someone else. You're busy. You're pretending to be engaged to me, remember? Orm raised an eyebrow. I didn't realize you were managing my schedule now. Ling gave her a look, then crossed her arms tighter. The doorbell rang. Orm grinned. Relax, I'll be back after the scandalous meeting with my very professional client. She practically skipped down the stairs. Ling stayed upstairs for 3 seconds before following her. Ling moved closer to the window and peeked outside. You're going to meet him alone? It's not a date, Ling. It's business. Still. Orm rolled her eyes. Still what? Ling turned and leaned against the window frame. Still weird, he has a crush on you, always has. Which is why you insisted on sleeping in my bed, right? Orm teased. To protect me from the dangers of flattery? Ling gave her a deadpan look. Don't make jokes, you know what I mean. I do, Orm said, but it's cute when you get like this. I'm not cute, Ling muttered. Fine, Orm said, standing and brushing imaginary dust off her shorts. You're a big, scary, jealous beast who growls whenever another mammal gets near me. Ling's lips twitched. Damn right. They heard footsteps on the gravel outside. Orm looked at Ling. Promise to behave? Ling looked back with a straight face. Define behave. Ling, I'll be silent, like a shadow. You're incapable of being subtle, Orm said, walking to the door. Watch me. Orm opened the door to find Earth standing there with a hopeful grin and a USB in hand. Hey, Orm. Sorry I'm a bit early. No problem, Orm said, waving him in. Come on up. I have everything set up in my room. As Earth followed her up the stairs, Ling was already seated on Orm's bed, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Hey, Ling, Earth said, clearly trying to sound casual. Ling gave a polite nod. Hi. Orm caught the flicker of tension and fought the urge to smirk. This was going to be fun. Chapter 5. Part 2. Under Surveillance. The moment Earth sat down across from Orm at her desk, Ling pulled up a chair just slightly to the side. Not too close, but close enough to hover. Earth opened his USB. So, here's all my content. Gallery shots, a short bio, and my logo idea. Orm leaned over the screen, nodding. I like the color scheme. Very you. Ling tilted her head. Very you? Orm didn't answer, but Earth cleared his throat. Yeah. I thought muted blues and grays might make the photos pop more. Ling hummed. She didn't say more, but didn't leave either. They got to work. Orm sketched some layout ideas, Earth nodded enthusiastically, and every 5 minutes Ling shifted her chair, sighed, or asked if they needed anything. Do you want tea? She asked for the second time. We're fine, Orm said firmly. You sure? There's that blueberry blend your mom likes. Ling leaned back, crossing one leg over the other, arms folded tight. Earth laughed nervously. It's okay, I get it. You're just being protective. Territorial, Orm muttered. Ling didn't deny it. From the hallway they heard voices. Aunt Nita was passing by and poked her head in. Oh, is this the handsome boy who came to visit Orm? Earth stood awkwardly. Just here for design help. Sure, Aunt Nita said with a wink. Ling, you better watch out. She's watching, Orm muttered. A few more aunts strolled past the open door. So this is the fiancé and the ex-crush, someone whispered a little too loudly. Ling didn't blink. She just moved her chair closer. Orm groaned. You're loving this, aren't you? Ling turned her head. Define loving. Earth chuckled but looked increasingly uncomfortable. Maybe we should work somewhere quieter. Like the moon? Orm mumbled, but Ling wasn't going anywhere. Just as Orm tried to show Earth the mock-up on her laptop, Ling leaned in a little too close from behind. "Your font's a little basic," Ling commented, squinting. Orm glanced at her. "Thanks for the unsolicited feedback." Earth tried to chuckle, but his eyes darted between the two of them like he was watching a tennis match. Another relative passed by, this time Uncle Tawan, munching on peanuts. "What's going on here, huh? Interview for future son-in-law?" "Uncle," Orm shouted. He just grinned and wandered off. Ling smirked behind her hand. Then Grandma appeared with a tray of fruit. "Sharing snacks always brings people closer," she declared, setting the tray down right between Earth and Ling like a peace offering. Or a dare. Earth picked up a slice of mango and smiled politely. "Thank you, Grandma." "You're welcome, handsome boy." Ling plucked a grape, looked him dead in the eye, and ate it without breaking eye contact. Orm slapped her forehead. "You're impossible." "She started it," Ling said under her breath. Earth gave up pretending everything was fine. "Look, maybe I should go over the files with you later. Maybe email?" "No," Orm said quickly. "We're doing this now." But the interruptions didn't stop. Two cousins stopped to take selfies from the hallway. Her brother peeked in to say, "Should I tell your fiancée her glare's getting scarier?" "Get out!" Orm snapped. The door finally closed, but the damage was done. Earth pushed his chair back. "It's okay, Orm. I think I have what I need for now." "No, wait. I'll email the rest," he said, already halfway to the door. "Thanks for your time." Orm watched helplessly as he left. Ling smiled and popped another grape into her mouth. Guess he wasn't that serious about the website. Orm didn't say anything. She was too busy trying not to explode. Chapter 5. Part 3. Disrupted Designs. Orm shut the door behind Earth and leaned against it, fists clenched. Ling was lounging on her bed like a cat who'd just swatted a bird out of the sky. "He didn't even get to show me the rest of his logo sketches," Orm said, glaring at her. Ling didn't look up. "He can email them." "You completely hijacked that meeting." "I was quiet." "You were not quiet." "I offered tea 3 times. Ling finally sat up. "Why are you so upset? It's not like you actually wanted to do his stupid little website." Orm stalked across the room and snatched up her sketchpad from the floor. "I did want to. It was real work, Ling. Something I could put in my portfolio." Ling's expression faltered for just a moment. "This wasn't some flirty coffee date. He came here to talk about design and you scared him off like a feral guard dog." Ling rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. If he can't handle a little company, he couldn't handle you glaring holes into his skull." Orm started flipping through the mock-ups they never got to discuss, her fingers trembling with frustration. "You know what? Forget it. I'll message him and apologize. Tell him I'll reschedule when you're not around." Ling stood up, crossing the room in 2 quick strides. "I'm not sorry." "Of course you're not," Orm muttered. "You're never sorry. You just do what you want." "I do what I have to." "Like chasing off anyone who even looks at me for longer than 2 seconds?" Ling didn't answer. Orm slammed her laptop shut. "You ruined it." Silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. "I ruined nothing," Ling said finally, voice low. "I made sure he didn't cross a line." "He didn't," Orm snapped. "You did." "You don't trust me," Orm said, her voice quieter now, but sharper too. "That's what this is." Ling narrowed her eyes. "That's not true." "Then why did you hover like a jealous teenager?" "Because I know how guys like him think," Ling snapped. "He was looking for excuses to be close to you. I could see it." "That doesn't give you the right to bulldoze over my work meeting." Ling crossed her arms. "I didn't bulldoze. I supervised." "Oh my God, Ling." Orm stared at her. "You think you're funny, but this isn't a joke. I worked hard to build a portfolio. This job could have led to more work. Word of mouth. Exposure." "He wasn't here to network, Orm." "Maybe not. But I was." That stopped Ling. She took a small step back, her face unreadable again. Orm kept going. "You say you're helping me, protecting me, but half the time it feels like you're trying to control me. I'm not." Well, it feels like it, Orm shot back. I used to think I could handle you when you got like this, that maybe it was just part of the whole fake relationship deal. But today you embarrassed me in front of my family, my client, and made me look like I can't set a boundary without you looming behind me. Ling's jaw tightened. He doesn't respect your boundaries. He would have if you gave him 5 seconds to breathe. They stood in silence again. Ling finally looked away. I didn't think it mattered that much to you. It does, Orm said, voice brittle. It matters a lot. And if you can't see that, then maybe you don't understand me as well as you think. Ling looked like she wanted to say something more, but didn't. She walked to the door, paused, and then left without another word. Chapter 5, Part 4. Ultimatums. Ling didn't go far. She was in the backyard, leaning against the trunk of Orm's favorite mango tree, arms folded tight across her chest. Her face was shadowed, unreadable as always. Orm found her easily. She didn't hesitate. You can't just walk away every time you get called out? Ling didn't move. You want to talk now? Yes. Now. Ling exhaled and looked over. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry for caring? I want you to understand, Orm said. This fake relationship thing, it's not an excuse to bulldoze over every decision I make. I wasn't bulldozing. Ling cut herself off, lips pressing into a tight line. I saw the way he looked at you. Of course he looked at me, Ling. That's not a crime. It's not just the look, it's the energy, like he was waiting for an opening. Orm stepped closer. That's not your call to make. Yes, it is, Ling said flatly. As long as I'm your girlfriend, even if it's fake, I'm not letting you be alone with someone who clearly wants to sleep with you. Orm stared at her. You don't get to make those decisions. I do when you won't. I won't? Orm's voice shot up. You think I can't handle myself? I think you don't take things seriously until it's too late, Ling said quietly, and I'm not going to wait for someone like Earth to try something and then act surprised. Orm threw her hands up. God, you're impossible. Maybe. But I'm not wrong. They stood there, tension thick as ever, the wind rustling dry leaves around them. Ling looked at her for a long moment, eyes unreadable. I don't care if you hate me for it. I won't let you be alone with someone who's in love with you. That's not happening. And what if I want to be? Orm shot back. Ling's jaw clenched. Then we have a problem. Orm took a shaky breath and crossed her arms. You act like I'm some naive idiot who can't read people. That's not what I think. It's exactly what you think. You don't trust me to make decisions. You don't think I can draw the line. Ling looked down at the grass. I trust you. I don't trust him. There's a difference. You don't trust anyone. Orm's voice cracked. You think every person who shows interest in me has an agenda. They do. Oh, come on. I'm serious, Ling said. You're sweet, kind, gorgeous. You act like a clueless princess half the time and don't notice when people start circling like sharks. So you're my bodyguard now? I'm your girlfriend, remember? Fake girlfriend, Orm corrected. Just fake. Not to your family, not to your friends, and not to me when I'm watching some guy lean over your shoulder like he's already planning his next move. You don't get to control me just because we're pretending. Ling stepped forward. It stopped feeling like pretending a long time ago. That silenced Orm. Ling looked away, jaw clenched. But I guess I'm the only one who feels that way. Orm's heart hammered in her chest, but her pride snapped louder than anything else. You don't get to act like a martyr. You're not doing this out of love. You're doing it because you're possessive and controlling, and I'm doing it because I care about you, Ling yelled. Orm took a step back, stunned. Ling swallowed hard. I can't stand the idea of anyone hurting you. And yeah, maybe I went too far, but I won't apologize for protecting you. Not ever. Orm stared at her for a long moment. Her chest felt tight. Everything felt too much. I didn't ask you to protect me, she whispered. But you need it, Ling whispered back. Chapter 5, Part 5. Not really. Orm's eyes burned. She wasn't even sure if it was from anger or something worse. Ling stood there, fierce and unyielding, throwing words like weapons and expecting her to just absorb the hits. "I don't need protecting," Orm said, voice rising again. "I'm not your problem to solve." Ling didn't move. "You are when you pretend this isn't real." "This isn't real!" Orm shouted. "None of this is. You're not my real girlfriend. You don't get to act like you own me." Silence crashed down on them. Ling's expression didn't change, at first. Then it did. Something in her eyes dimmed. A small, almost imperceptible shift, like something inside her quietly cracked. Orm saw it, felt it, regretted it instantly, but couldn't take it back. Ling exhaled slowly. "Right." She stepped back. "Ling." "I get it," Ling said. Her voice wasn't sharp anymore, just quiet. "Loud and clear." "Wait, I didn't mean—" "You did." Ling turned around. Orm took a step toward her, panic rising. "Don't go." But Ling didn't look back. She walked away. Orm stood frozen as the last of Ling's footsteps faded. The silence left behind felt louder than the shouting had ever been. She sank down onto the garden bench, her legs barely supporting her. Her heart was still racing, her hands trembling with adrenaline and something sharper. Guilt, maybe. The words she'd shouted echoed back in her own head, each one a blade. "You're not my real girlfriend." Except Ling had been acting like one, had held her like one, had kissed her like one, had protected her like— Orm buried her face in her hands. Why had she said that? Because it was the truth? Because it wasn't? A bird chirped in the tree above her, too bright and too cheerful. Orm wanted to scream at it to shut up. She thought about chasing after Ling. But what would she even say? That she didn't mean it? That she was angry and said the cruelest thing she could think of just to make her shut up? The truth was worse than all of that. The truth was, she hadn't wanted Ling to stop. Not really. She just hadn't known how to handle what it felt like to be wanted that fiercely. To be fought for, like she mattered more than a fake label or a make-believe romance. And Ling had looked at her like she was something precious, like she wasn't pretending at all. Orm blinked fast, clearing the wetness from her eyes. She had hurt her, badly. She curled into herself, drawing her knees up on the bench. Ling was gone. Not far, maybe. But emotionally, it felt like she was on another planet now, and all Orm could do was sit there, her words still echoing in the air. "Not really your girlfriend. Not really." She closed her eyes and, without meaning to, remembered the night before. Ling's touch, her mouth, her voice whispering things Orm never imagined someone would say to her. Not with hunger, not with reverence. It had felt so real, too real. And now? Now Orm had slammed the door on it with one sentence. "You're not my real girlfriend." It was easier to pretend it was fake, safer, cleaner, but the way her heart hurt now? There was nothing fake about that. She remembered how Ling had brushed the hair out of her face while she was falling asleep the night before. How she whispered, "You're so beautiful when you're stubborn," and kissed her temple, as if Orm were hers, as if it had never been pretend. Orm wiped at her face, suddenly furious at herself. What was she so afraid of? That Ling meant it? That she might mean it too? The truth scared her more than anything Earth or any other guy ever could. Because if Ling was serious, if she had been serious all along, then this wasn't just a game. And Orm had just thrown it all away. She pressed her hand to her chest, like she could hold something inside from breaking. From across the garden someone called her name, but she didn't move, didn't answer. The sun had dipped lower, casting long shadows, and everything around her felt heavier now. Ling was gone, and Orm didn't know how to get her back. Let's just pretend. Chapter 6. Ling stood on the wooden porch of her childhood home, her fingers wrapped loosely around a bottle of chilled water. The sun had already begun its descent, casting a golden hue over the countryside that surrounded her mother's house. The low bark of a dog greeted her as she stepped into the yard, followed by a blur of fur as the massive golden retriever bounded toward her, tongue lolling. "Boss," she laughed, crouching down to hug the dog tightly. "You've gotten fat." From around the corner, a lazy meow answered her. A white cat perched on a sunny patch of the porch railing, flicking its tail with imperial disdain. Ling smiled, letting the tension in her chest soften just a little. Her mother, Mint, appeared from the garden wearing gloves and a straw hat, her eyes lighting up when she spotted her daughter. "Didn't expect to see you until the weekend." "Change of plans," Ling said, rising and dusting off her jeans. "I needed some space." Mint's smile faltered slightly, but she didn't push. "Well, the animals have missed you. Come inside, I'll make tea." Inside, the air smelled like lemongrass and mint. Ling let her eyes wander over the familiar space. Childhood drawings still hung by magnets on the fridge. She took her tea quietly and sat on the kitchen bench while the dog curled up at her feet. Mint looked at her over the steam of her cup. "Is it Orm?" Ling didn't answer right away. She sipped slowly, then gave a quiet nod. Mint let the silence linger. "She's the girl who's always been around, right?" "She's the one," Ling said softly. "She break your heart?" Ling let out a tired sigh. "I think I broke hers." Mint reached over and gave her hand a squeeze. "Then fix it." Ling wandered out to the backyard, cup in hand, and sat on the low wooden bench where she'd once taught Boss to roll over. The air was still except for a breeze rustling through the trees, and for the first time all week, no one was watching her. No pretending, no Orm. The thought of her tightened something in her chest. Boss whined and rested his chin on her knee. Ling scratched his ears, murmuring, "It's not like she doesn't care." But she said, "I'm not her real girlfriend." Her voice cracked a little, and she hated that it did. "Why'd I agree to this whole fake dating thing?" she asked the dog. "I could have just said no." The dog blinked at her in solemn understanding. Mint appeared again with a glass of iced lemongrass juice this time. She handed it to Ling and sat beside her. "You looked like a kicked puppy just now." Ling scoffed. "Maybe I feel like one." "Then go home." "She told me I wasn't really her girlfriend," Ling muttered. "She doesn't want me like that." Mint considered her daughter for a long moment. "Ling, if you're going to love someone, you have to risk being unloved back. Otherwise, you're just playing it safe forever." Ling swallowed hard. "She's my best friend." "And maybe more," Mint said. "The kind of more that scares you both." Boss let out a low bark, as if to second that. Ling exhaled slowly. She wasn't ready to see Orm. Not yet. But she was starting to realize she didn't want to lose her either. The sun dipped further, shadows stretching. Ling stood, brushing off her pants. "Thanks, Mom." "Bring her next time," Mint said gently. Ling didn't respond. She just nodded and started toward her car. Let's just pretend. Chapter 6, Part 2. As Ling walked back toward her car, she spotted a familiar figure leaning against the fence near the driveway. Fern, her mom's neighbor, was dressed in tight denim shorts and a cropped tank top, lazily twirling a piece of grass between her fingers. She smirked when she saw Ling approaching. "Well, well," Fern said, pushing off the fence with a tilt of her hip. "Haven't seen you around in a while." Ling gave her a polite nod. "Been busy." Fern sauntered closer. "You look it. Tense. Wound up." She let her eyes roam Ling's body, not even bothering to be subtle. "You sure you don't want to stick around? I'm really good at helping people unwind." Ling raised an eyebrow. "That so?" "Mm-hmm." Fern stepped close enough that Ling caught the faint scent of vanilla body spray. "You seem frustrated. I know a few ways to take the edge off. Wouldn't even have to go inside. We could—" "No," Ling said, her voice sharp and final. Fern blinked, surprised by the firmness. Ling stepped back, jaw tight. "I'm not interested." Fern's smile faltered. "You used to be." "That was before. Before Orm. Before pretending turned into something that felt too real." Fern narrowed her eyes slightly, then shrugged with a casual laugh. Guess you're finally off the market. That rich princess must be keeping you busy. Ling didn't answer. She just opened her car door. You ever get tired of being her little guard dog? Fern added. You know where to find me. Ling shut the door without a word and drove off, gravel crunching beneath her tires. She didn't look back. She didn't need distractions. Not now. Not when her heart was already tied up in someone who didn't want to call it real. Fern didn't move. She crossed her arms instead, eyes raking over Ling with a smirk that was anything but innocent. Come on. It's not like I'm asking you to marry me, just a little fun between old friends. Ling leaned on the edge of her car door, exhaling slowly through her nose. It wouldn't be fun. Not for me. Fern raised an eyebrow. You always used to enjoy yourself. I was a different person then, Ling said. Her tone had softened, but only slightly. Fern tilted her head. So what's the deal with her? This girl of yours? Ling looked out toward the field beyond the houses. She's complicated. She's rich and bratty and probably thinks the world revolves around her. She's also kind, smart, and the only person I've ever let see all of me. That stunned Fern into a rare silence. She studied Ling for a moment, then scoffed. She must be something if she got you turning down a sure thing like me. Ling straightened. She is. She walked around to the driver's side, opened the door again, but this time, before getting in, she said, Don't make this weird the next time I'm visiting my mom. I'm not into you, and I don't want to pretend I ever will be. Fern gave a lazy shrug, but her face had hardened. Fine. Go play house with your princess. Ling slid into her seat, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway with purpose. Fern faded in the rearview mirror like a chapter she'd long since outgrown. Ling didn't want easy. She wanted Orm, with all her mood swings, her bratty comments, her fragile pride. That girl had burrowed into her like no one else ever had. And right now, Ling needed to figure out how to keep her. Let's just pretend. Chapter 6, Part 3. The clock glowed 11:03 p.m. Orm sat on her bed, knees hugged to her chest, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. She hadn't texted Ling, not once since their fight, and Ling hadn't messaged her either. She told herself she didn't care, that Ling needed space, that Ling was probably just still angry. But with every minute that passed, her confidence chipped away. She wasn't with someone else. Was she? Orm hated the thought of that, hated the way it made her stomach twist. She pictured Ling laughing at someone else's joke, letting someone else's hand slide down her arm. Someone who wasn't afraid to take what Ling offered. Someone bold, sexy, experienced. Orm buried her face in her knees. She wasn't like that. She was awkward and unsure and constantly pretending not to care. But she did care, and she missed Ling. She glanced at the door again, still closed, still quiet. Down the hall, she could hear the muffled sound of a sitcom playing in the living room. Her aunt's laughter echoed briefly. The rest of the house had begun to wind down. Lights were switching off one by one. Only hers remained on. She checked her phone again. Nothing. Her chest felt too tight. She got up, crossed the room, and peeked out the window toward the front drive. Empty. She almost called her brother to ask if he'd seen Ling, almost called Ling herself. But her pride stopped her. Ling had walked away. Ling had left. Ling was the one who... Headlights. Orm froze, heart leaping. The car pulled up slowly, the beam of lights stretching across the hedges and the stone pathway. Ling's car. Orm backed away from the window, heart thudding. She didn't know what she wanted. An apology? A kiss? A fight? She just knew one thing. She was relieved Ling had come home. She dropped back onto the bed, arms limp at her sides. The silence in the room felt louder now, heavier. Every tick of the clock made her nerves pulse. She remembered the way Ling's voice had gone flat. "You're not really my girlfriend." It echoed over and over in her head like a curse she'd accidentally cast on herself. Orm sat up and grabbed her pillow, hugging it tightly to her chest. She had half a mind to text Ling something casual, maybe a sarcastic line. Her go-to when feelings got messy. Something like, "Still alive?" Or, "Should I plan your funeral?" But the text stayed unsent. What if Ling didn't reply? What if she was with someone right now? Some girl who hadn't called their relationship fake in a moment of bratty defiance? Someone who hadn't broken her trust? Orm stood abruptly, pacing across the room. The floor creaked beneath her feet, familiar and grounding. Her heart pounded too fast for something as small as a missed bedtime. But it wasn't small, not to her, because even when their whole relationship had been a lie, Ling had always come home. Always tucked Orm in with a kiss, always held her like she mattered. The lack of that tonight made the room feel colder than usual. She walked to the window again and pressed her hand to the glass, peering out into the night. Every shadow looked like a person. Every branch twitching in the wind made her flinch. Then she saw it, those headlights. Her breath caught. She wanted to run downstairs and meet her, wanted to pretend nothing had happened, wanted to yell or hug or cry. Instead, she stood frozen, watching Ling park and cut the engine. Orm's heart was a mess of relief, guilt, and something dangerously close to hope. Let's just pretend. Chapter 6, Part 4. The door clicked softly. Orm scrambled back from the window and dove onto the bed, feigning sleep. Her heart thudded as she listened to the familiar sounds of Ling's footsteps, slower than usual, heavy. Ling didn't say anything as she entered, just placed her keys on the nightstand, kicked off her shoes, and moved about with a kind of mechanical silence. No teasing, no sighs, no casual end-of-the-day chatter. Orm peeked up through her lashes. Ling's face was unreadable, blank, except for the exhaustion hanging beneath her eyes. She changed into her sleep shirt without a word, pulled back the covers, and climbed into bed with her back to Orm, like a stranger. Orm hesitated, then reached out and gently touched Ling's shoulder. "You're back." Ling didn't turn. Her voice was quiet. "We don't have to do this anymore." Orm blinked. "Do what?" "This," Ling said, gesturing vaguely. "Act like a couple when we're alone. You don't want it. I'm not gonna force it." The words hit harder than Orm expected. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Her hand slid away from Ling's shoulder. A hollow ache opened in her chest. She wanted to say she didn't mean what she said before, that Ling was more than pretend, that she was confused and scared but not cold. But the words tangled in her throat. Ling shifted slightly, pulling the blanket up around her. Orm watched the shape of her back beneath the covers, the strong slope of her shoulder blades, the way her hair spilled onto the pillow. It was never this quiet between them. She curled into herself, staring at the ceiling, feeling a deep ache grow. And just like that, the bed that once felt warm with shared secrets felt like an ocean between them, and she had no idea how to cross it. Orm rolled onto her side, staring at Ling's back like it held all the answers. The way her shoulder tensed when she moved, the way her breathing was just slightly uneven. Ling wasn't asleep. She was hurting, quietly, on purpose, the same way Orm always did. "I didn't mean it," Orm whispered, but the words barely left her lips. What would she even say? That she panicked? That the thought of Ling being real and hers was so terrifying it made her want to push everything away? That she was too scared of being hurt, so she'd hurt Ling first? The silence thickened. Ling's body was stiff with restraint. Usually, even after a disagreement, she would pull Orm in, drape an arm around her waist, kiss the back of her neck. Something, anything. But tonight, there was nothing. Orm reached out again, this time letting her fingers brush Ling's arm, just lightly. "You were gone a long time." Ling didn't move. "Yeah." Orm swallowed. "Where did you go?" "To my mom's." Orm let that hang in the air. "And after?" A pause. "Home, here." Her voice wasn't cruel, just tired, as if even this conversation was too much effort. "I waited," Orm said quietly. Ling gave a soft exhale, almost a sigh. "You didn't want me around." "That's not true." Orm whispered, more to herself than to Ling, but Ling didn't respond. She shifted slightly, pulling the blanket higher again, a subtle shield. Orm turned to face the ceiling, her eyes stinging. She didn't cry, not really, but tears slipped out anyway, soundless and hot, sinking into the pillow. Ling didn't hear them, or maybe she pretended not to, and Orm didn't have the courage to reach out again. Not yet. Let's just pretend. Chapter 6, Part 5. Ling's breaths eventually slowed, becoming the steady rhythm of sleep. Orm lay perfectly still, facing her back, eyes wide open in the dark. The silence wasn't peaceful tonight. It scraped against her skin like sandpaper. Ling's stillness felt like punishment. No arm thrown over her waist, no warm body curling instinctively around hers, just the invisible wall between them, built brick by the words Orm had hurled in fear and pride. She hated herself for it. She thought she wanted space, control, to keep the lie safe and the feelings buried. But what was she protecting, really? What good was safety if it left her here, empty and aching, with only her own guilt for company? She stared at the ceiling until her vision blurred. Then she blinked, and the first tear fell. She turned her face into the pillow to muffle the sound, not that Ling would hear her, not when she was so far away despite being inches from her, not when Orm had made sure of it. Another sob escaped, soft and broken. She bit her lip to stay quiet. The sheets shifted slightly beside her as Ling rolled further away in her sleep, taking the warmth with her. It felt deliberate, even if it wasn't. Orm squeezed her eyes shut. She didn't deserve her, didn't deserve the way Ling had always protected her, comforted her, touched her with more care than anyone else ever had. She wanted to reach out and whisper, "Come back." She wanted to say, "I lied. I do want to be yours." She wanted to scream, "Don't give up on me yet." But all she could do was cry into the darkness, hoping that tomorrow, if she was brave enough, she could start to fix what she'd broken. Orm's mind wouldn't stop replaying every moment from the past few weeks. Ling brushing her hair behind her ear, Ling helping her mount the horse, whispering encouragement, Ling holding her all night after their first time, kissing her shoulder in the dark, Ling always choosing her. And now Ling didn't even face her. A sharp sob caught in her throat, and she quickly bit her fist to stifle it. The salt of her own skin was grounding, but it didn't stop the trembling. She'd never felt so alone beside someone before. She shifted slightly, trying not to move the mattress, but even that small motion made her feel like a fraud. She had everything she claimed to want: distance, space, emotional safety, and it was unbearable. Orm thought about reaching for her phone, writing a message she could show Ling in the morning, something honest, something real. But the idea of those words, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, I miss you," felt too big to type, too scary to say. She rolled to her side, away from Ling now, curling into herself like a child. Her chest heaved silently, her tears soaked the pillowcase until it clung to her cheek. The darkness stretched on. At one point, she thought she heard Ling sigh in her sleep, a soft murmur barely audible. Orm held her breath, hoping maybe Ling would roll toward her. Maybe her hand would reach out even in sleep and bridge the gap. But the moment passed. The silence resumed. Orm hugged her knees tighter and let the tears fall until sleep finally took her, fitful, restless, and cold on her side of the bed. Let's Just Pretend, Chapter 7, Part 1. Orm stood in the hallway in her tennis skirt, twirling the racket between her fingers. She looked effortlessly casual, but her eyes were sharp, fixed on Ling, who sat under the shade of the veranda, scrolling through her phone. Earth had just arrived, dressed in athletic gear and carrying a spare racket slung over his shoulder. "Ready?" he asked brightly. Orm smiled. "Absolutely." Ling didn't even look up. Orm's smile faltered for half a second before she pushed past it. She turned to Earth and looped her arm through his. "Let's see if I still remember how to serve. It's been so long." They made their way toward the court, laughing as Earth made an exaggerated show of stretching. Orm laughed with him, maybe a little too loudly. Every now and then she threw a look over her shoulder, but Ling didn't budge from her spot. It was infuriating. On the court, Orm bent a little lower than necessary as she prepared her serve, tossing her hair over her shoulder and smirking. Earth didn't hide his appreciation. "You look good, you know," he said. She smiled, letting her fingers trail along his arm. "Flattery won't save you when I win." From the corner of her eye, she could just see Ling, still seated, eyes on her phone like none of this mattered. Orm hit the ball hard, letting the skirt flare. Earth dashed to return it, and they played a surprisingly fast-paced game. He was better than she remembered. She let herself be pulled into the match, but her mind never fully left the shaded figure on the patio. When they paused for water, Earth handed her a bottle. She leaned against the fence, pretending to pant. "You're not bad. Still think I look good?" "Better now," he grinned. Orm laughed, tossing her head back. Still nothing from Ling. She tightened her grip around the bottle. What was she doing wrong? Any other girl and Ling would have thrown a jealous fit by now. Wasn't this what she wanted? Ling's attention. Ling's fire. Orm turned back to Earth, determination flickering in her chest. "You know," she said sweetly, "I could use a swim after this. You still have that pool?" Earth brightened. "Yeah? Want to come over after?" Orm smiled, loud enough for Ling to hear this time. Perfect. Still no reaction. But her heart beat faster anyway, not because of Earth, because she knew Ling, and Ling could only pretend for so long. Orm watched Earth towel off sweat, laughing at something she barely registered. Her eyes kept drifting back to Ling, whose posture hadn't changed. Was she really not going to react? Orm's stomach twisted. It wasn't supposed to feel like this. She wanted Ling's attention, not indifference. "Hey," Earth said, nudging her. "You okay?" She blinked, plastering on a smile. "Yeah, just thinking about how I'm going to destroy you in the next set." He grinned. Bold. "I like it." They resumed playing. This time, Orm added more flirtation to her movements, letting her laugh linger, letting her fingers touch Earth's shoulder when she complimented his backhand. He was eating it up. And still, Ling didn't move. By the time they called another break, Orm was flushed and more frustrated than she wanted to admit. Earth handed her a towel, and she dabbed her neck slowly, shooting another pointed glance at the veranda. "I still can't believe how grown up you look," Earth said. "You were just a kid last time I visited." Orm smirked. "Well, I'm definitely not a kid anymore." Ling finally looked up. Just once. A glance that cut like a knife. No smile, no frown. Just stillness. Then back to her phone. Orm's breath caught. "Your place still has that pool?" she asked louder this time. Earth nodded, oblivious. "Of course. Heated. And no one's home." "Even better," she said, stepping closer, letting her voice dip. "I think I need to cool off." This time she didn't look back, but her pulse was racing. Because she felt it. Ling's eyes on her, finally. Let's just pretend. Chapter 7, Part 2. Orm stood in front of the mirror in her room, adjusting the thin straps of her swimsuit. It was a simple piece, navy blue, sleek, but the way it hugged her body left little to the imagination. She let her hair down, letting it fall in loose waves over her shoulders. Her cheeks were flushed, more from nerves than heat. Was she really doing this? Yes, she was. She grabbed a towel and headed out of the room, passing by several of her aunts in the hallway who arched their eyebrows in amusement. "Swimming this late?" one of them teased. Orm just smiled and shrugged, pretending to be nonchalant. "It's hot out." Outside, Earth was waiting near the garden steps, sipping from a bottle of iced tea. When he caught sight of her, his jaw slackened just a little. "Wow, you look hot," she supplied with a smirk. He laughed. "I was gonna say gorgeous, but sure, hot too." Orm offered a smug smile, but her eyes were already drifting, to the edge of the patio where Ling stood now. She was no longer on her phone. She wasn't sitting anymore either. She was watching. Orm's stomach flipped. She kept her head high, walking with measured confidence toward Earth. "Ready?" she asked, her voice just a touch louder than it needed to be. Ling's eyes didn't leave her. Earth extended his hand toward her towel. She never got to pass it to him. Ling's voice cut through the air like a blade. Orm, she turned, brows raised. Yes? Say goodbye to your little friend and go to our room, now. The air went still. Earth blinked. Whoa, whoa. Orm, is everything? Orm didn't look at him. Her heart was pounding, but her mouth curled into the faintest smirk. I don't need you anymore, she said, brushing past him without another glance. Ling was already headed toward the stairs, and Orm followed. She hadn't worn this swimsuit in ages. It had always felt a little too daring. Now it felt like armor. Orm checked herself once more, running her fingers over her hips and adjusting the cut where it hugged her curves. Her heart raced, not from excitement, but from the heat of anticipation. She wasn't doing this for Earth. Not really. She was doing it for the girl downstairs whose face hadn't cracked once all afternoon. She stepped out of her room and made her way through the house, past the living room where several cousins were lounging. One of them let out a low whistle. Someone's trying to break hearts today. Orm, wow. Another added with a teasing smile. Orm just waved them off, just going for a swim. As she stepped onto the back patio, she saw Ling first. Ling had turned, fully facing the garden now, arms crossed, expression unreadable but intense. Her dark eyes followed every step Orm took. Earth stood as she approached, blinking in mild awe. Damn, you really weren't kidding about the swimsuit. Orm didn't respond right away. She kept her eyes locked on Ling's for a heartbeat longer before forcing herself to look away. Earth fumbled with his drink. You sure you're not gonna melt in that? Might have to keep an eye on you to make sure you don't drown. She offered him a polite laugh, but it was hollow. Ling took a slow, deliberate step forward. Her posture radiated control, but her gaze was fire. Orm could see it now. The tightening of her jaw, the subtle tension in her shoulders. That's when she spoke. And when Ling said, "Say goodbye to your little friend and go to our room," the world stopped. Orm's breath hitched. This was what she'd been waiting for. Ling, unrestrained. She could feel Earth stiffen beside her, confused and a little indignant. Orm? What is she talking about? But Orm didn't need to answer. She turned on her heel, towel still in hand, the smirk growing wider now. I don't need you anymore, she repeated, voice soft but clear. And with her pulse hammering, she followed Ling inside. Let's just pretend. Chapter 7, Part 3. The slam of the bedroom door was the only warning Orm got before she was pushed backward, gently but firmly, until the back of her knees hit the bed. Ling stood in front of her, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes dark with something Orm couldn't quite name. Not anger, not really. Something hotter, something more dangerous. So this is what we're doing now? Ling asked, voice low. Orm swallowed. Doing what? Ling raised a brow. Flirting with other people in front of me? I wasn't wearing that swimsuit? Parading around with him like you were on a date? Orm faltered. I thought we agreed this is fake, that you didn't care. Ling's nostrils flared, and she took a step closer. You really think I don't care? Orm's stomach flipped. She didn't answer. Ling leaned in, her lips almost brushing Orm's ear. Say it again. Say you thought I didn't care. Orm's breath hitched. Ling pulled back slightly, just enough to look her in the eye. You wanted a reaction, right? You've got one. With that, she grabbed Orm's wrist and turned her around in one fluid motion. Orm gasped as Ling bent her over the bed, hands pressed flat to the mattress, swimsuit riding up high on her thighs. I saw you laughing, Ling said, voice like velvet and steel. Touching him, playing coy. You think that doesn't do something to me? Orm whimpered. I'm not mad, Ling continued, but I'm not letting it slide either. A sharp smack landed on Orm's ass, making her jolt, then another. Not hard enough to hurt, just enough to make her squirm. You want attention? Ling murmured. You've got all of mine now. Orm's legs trembled, her heart pounded in her chest, heat pooling deep and fast. She wasn't sure what she'd started. But she was about to find out how far Ling would take it. Orm didn't remember walking up the stairs. 1 minute she was on the patio, Ling's voice sending chills down her spine. And the next, she was inside their shared room, door slamming shut, her back already hitting the bed. Ling hadn't said a word the entire way up, but every step had felt loaded, every second dragging like the calm before a storm. Orm's heart had thudded painfully, her body thrumming with anticipation, nerves, heat. She tried to meet Ling's eyes now, but there was something too sharp in them, something that made her want to squirm and stay still at the same time. "I wasn't doing anything serious," she mumbled, voice embarrassingly small. Ling's eyes narrowed. "Then you won't mind what comes next." Orm blinked. What?" Ling's hands closed around her hips, tugging her to the edge of the bed, one slow, possessive movement at a time. Orm let out a shaky breath, unsure whether to fight or fold. "Look at me," Ling said. She did. "I don't share what's mine." Before Orm could ask what that meant, if it meant anything at all, Ling flipped her over and pushed her down flat, palms braced on either side of her head. Orm's cheek hit the cool sheets, her breath caught in her throat. The first slap came quick, a sting that spread across her skin like fire. Orm gasped, eyes flying wide. Another slap, then a low voice at her ear. "Count." What?" "Count, Orm." She swallowed. "2. Ling smirked against her skin. "Good girl." The third came softer, more of a caress than punishment, but it made Orm shiver all the same, and when Ling leaned over, pressing her chest to Orm's back, her voice turned darker. "We're just getting started. Let's just pretend." Chapter 7, Part 4. Orm didn't know where to put her hands. They gripped the sheets, fumbled at the edge of the mattress, then curled into fists as Ling's fingers skimmed down the backs of her thighs. Her skin burned everywhere Ling touched. Her breath came in short, uneven gasps, and her legs shook, barely able to hold her up as she stayed bent over the bed. "I want you to remember something," Ling said softly, dragging her nails along Orm's inner thighs. "You wanted this." Orm bit her lip, her eyes squeezing shut. "I wanted you to notice me," she whispered. Ling chuckled, low and dark. "Oh, I noticed. I noticed you the second you stepped onto that patio. That suit, that walk, that smirk." Her hand slid higher. Orm whimpered. Then Ling's fingers slid between her folds, slow, deliberate, possessive. She circled once, twice, then slipped a single finger in, smooth and deep. Orm moaned, her hips jerking instinctively. "Still so tight," Ling murmured. "Still mine." Orm barely had time to adjust before Ling added a second finger. The stretch made her gasp, back arching, thighs trembling. "Breathe," Ling said, voice calm but firm. I am," Orm panted. "Good, because you're going to take more." Orm's eyes flew open. "Ling, wait." "You can do it," Ling said, her free hand pressing gently on the small of her back to keep her steady. "You're already halfway there." She eased a third finger forward. Orm cried out, legs buckling. "It's too much," she choked out. "No," Ling said, mouth at her ear now, her voice molten. "It's exactly what you asked for." She held her there, fingers buried deep, her other hand stroking Orm's side as her whimpers turned to soft moans. And still, Ling didn't stop. Orm tried to catch her breath, but her body was shaking, caught in a storm of pain, pleasure, and something hotter that knotted in her stomach like fire. The stretch burned, and yet she didn't want Ling to stop. Not really. Ling's hand on her lower back was firm, grounding her. "You can take it," she said again, her voice softer now but no less commanding. "You're doing so well." Orm moaned, the words sliding into her chest like praise she hadn't known she craved. Ling moved her fingers slowly, deliberately, easing her into the rhythm. Orm's walls clenched instinctively, making her whimper again. "It hurts," she whispered. "I know," Ling replied, brushing her lips against Orm's shoulder blade. "But it's a good hurt, isn't it?" Orm didn't answer. She couldn't. Her mouth had gone slack, her hands gripping the sheets in desperation. Ling's pace remained steady, coaxing her to surrender inch by inch. "Tell me you're mine," Ling said, her breath hot against Orm's back. Orm moaned again, face buried in the blanket. "I'm yours." "I can't hear you." "I'm yours, Ling." "That's better." Ling thrust deeper, and Orm's moans turned into high, breathless cries. The discomfort was still there, but it was drowning now in heat, in friction, in a needy ache that grew with every stroke. "You like it when I stretch you like this," Ling murmured. Orm gasped. Yes. "You're such a good girl," Ling said, curling her fingers just enough to make Orm's knees buckle. "You act like a brat, but this is what you really want, isn't it?" Orm nodded furiously, tears leaking from the corners of her eyes, and then, when Ling hit just the right spot, her whole body convulsed. She came undone, legs trembling, crying out Ling's name as her body pulsed around her wife's fingers, and still, Ling held her close. Let's just pretend. Chapter 7, Part 5. Orm was still trembling when Ling finally withdrew her fingers, slow and gentle, leaving Orm gasping, her thighs slick and shaky. Her breath came in soft whimpers as she collapsed onto the mattress, limp, overwhelmed. But Ling wasn't done. "Turn around," she said, her voice low and husky. Orm obeyed, her body weak but pliant. Ling climbed over her, straddling her hips, her bare thighs pressing against Orm's. The weight, the warmth. It was everything Orm didn't know she'd missed. Ling's gaze held hers for a long moment, full of heat and something unreadable. "You wanted to tease me?" Ling whispered, her voice almost tender now. "Let's see how much teasing you can take." She shifted forward, grinding their hips together, slick skin meeting slick skin. Orm gasped, her hands flying to Ling's waist instinctively. "Oh, God." Ling began to move. The friction was unbearable in the best way. Slow at first, rolling her hips with expert control. Orm arched beneath her, moaning helplessly as Ling rubbed against her, clit dragging perfectly across Orm's until she was crying out with every thrust. "Ling, please, don't stop." "I'm not stopping," Ling said, voice rough. "Not until you come again." "You're gonna come for me like the little slut you are," Ling growled. Orm whimpered. "I'm not a slut. I was a virgin just for you." "Shut up. If it was any other girl acting up like you did today, I would have fucked her and then fucked a couple of the whores you have employed in this house who keep hitting on me as punishment." "No, please never do anyone else. I'll behave." Orm spoke as bratty as possible. She knew what they were doing and was into it. Orm opened her legs wide, letting Ling work, trying to feel every inch of her. Their bodies slapped together now, wet and frantic, Ling grinding harder, faster, until she was groaning, breath ragged. Orm clung to her like a lifeline, crying out with every roll of Ling's hips. She didn't know where one of them ended and the other began. All she knew was the heat, the pressure, the way Ling's body moved like it had been made just for hers. And when the second climax hit, Orm screamed, loud, raw, shaking, her entire body convulsing beneath Ling's. Ling followed a second later, biting down on Orm's shoulder as she came, her rhythm faltering as pleasure overtook her. They collapsed together, tangled and breathless, sweat cooling on their skin. For a long time, neither of them spoke. There were no more games, no more pretending, just the sound of two hearts pounding in sync. Ling didn't move for a while, her cheek resting against Orm's chest, both of them still panting. Orm wrapped her arms around her instinctively, not even thinking. She was still dazed, body humming, legs sticky and twitching, but all she wanted was to hold Ling there, to keep her close. But Ling eventually pulled back, brushing hair from Orm's flushed face. "You okay?" she murmured. Orm nodded slowly, eyes heavy. "Yeah, I just didn't expect to like it." "To like it that much," she whispered, cheeks burning. Ling smiled, but there was a glint in her eye. "You're lucky I didn't let you finish with him." "I wasn't going to," Orm muttered. "I know." Ling leaned down and kissed her, soft this time. less punishing, more like something else. Orm kissed back automatically, her lips opening beneath Ling's with need she didn't know she still had. Then Ling shifted again, and Orm gasped. Their skin was still sensitive, raw and electric. Ling chuckled low in her throat. Still not done? I don't know, Orm breathed. Are you? Ling didn't answer. She rolled her hips again, slow, delicious, and Orm moaned, throwing her head back into the pillows. I want to see you fall apart again, Ling said. One more time. I can't. You will. And Orm did. Ling rode her slowly this time, savoring every grind, every slick stroke of skin against skin. She kissed Orm's neck, her collarbone, her breasts, touched her like she was precious, possessed her like she was hers. And when Orm came again, shaking and sobbing and begging, Ling didn't stop. Only when she felt Orm go still beneath her, limp and gasping and full of her, did she finally stop moving. They stayed that way, tangled and damp and quiet, until the sweat dried and the silence stretched warm between them. Orm didn't know what this meant, but for now, she didn't want to move. Let's just pretend. Chapter 8, Part 1. The sun was high by the time Orm shuffled out of her room, hair tousled and cheeks still tingling from the memory of the night before. She could feel the ghost of Ling's hands everywhere, on her hips, her thighs, the sting that still lingered on her ass like a secret brand. It should have been awkward, but it wasn't. Not this morning. Ling was already in the kitchen, sitting at the long marble island, sipping her iced coffee like she hadn't ravished her best friend into a puddle of moans just hours ago. She glanced up when Orm entered, her smirk lazy and affectionate. There you are, Ling said. I thought I wore you out too much to walk. Orm rolled her eyes, but the heat rushing to her face gave her away. Shut up. May was bustling around the kitchen preparing eggs and sticky rice, while Aunt Ern and Grandma Neen sat at the breakfast table already halfway through their meal. As Orm took her seat beside Ling, the table fell into a hush, just long enough for someone to notice the glow on her face. You two look fresh, Aunt Ern said, raising an eyebrow. Orm choked on her tea. Grandma Neen tilted her head, lips curling in delight. Isn't young love wonderful? So full of energy. Ling didn't help. She just leaned her elbow on the table and said, Orm's always had a lot of stamina. I just helped her burn it off. The table erupted in laughter while Orm buried her face in her hands. Even May cracked a smile as she set a plate down. Well, as long as you're both happy and healthy. We are, Ling said, voice soft enough to be real. Orm peeked at her and smiled, because weirdly, she was. After the laughter died down, the table settled into a cozy hum of clinking forks and weekend chatter. Ling casually slipped a slice of mango onto Orm's plate, like it was second nature, like she had always done that. Orm blinked at it. Ling didn't say a word, just nudged her knee gently under the table. Orm didn't know when breakfast with Ling started feeling like this, like it meant something. So, May said with a smile, I suppose this is what they call the honeymoon phase. Orm gave a weak laugh and sipped her tea again, desperate to cool the blush on her face. It's not a phase, Ling said easily, brushing a stray hair from Orm's cheek. We're just getting started. She said it like a joke, but no one laughed this time. Not really. Are you two still going shopping for the engagement party later? Grandma Neen asked. Yes, Orm said quickly, relieved to change the subject. We thought we'd check out the new boutique in town. Good, Aunt Ern nodded. Try not to cause a scene this time. Ling gave a mock salute. No promises. Orm nudged her hard, but inside she was smiling. Ling's teasing, her touches, her words. It was all fake, wasn't it? Just acting for the family. But then why did her chest feel so full when Ling looked at her like that? Later, as they stood to clean up, Ling leaned in and whispered against Orm's ear. You didn't say good morning properly. Orm turned, puzzled, only for Ling to steal a quick kiss on her cheek. Behind them, Grandma Neen cheered. I saw that. Orm groaned again and smacked Ling with a napkin. Breakfast had never felt more like a battlefield, or home. As they left the kitchen, Orm couldn't help the quiet smile tugging at her lips. Maybe this fake engagement wasn't all bad. Let's just pretend. Chapter 8, Part 2. Orm tugged at the hem of her dress as she stepped into the boutique, eyes scanning racks of pastel lace, embroidered silks, and glittering accessories. It was the kind of place where everything cost too much and smelled faintly of vanilla and old money, perfect for an over-the-top engagement party, which, apparently, was exactly what her family wanted. Ling walked beside her in a loose cream blouse and tailored pants, looking infuriatingly calm and expensive. She reached out and grabbed a sequined clutch from the display. "Think this screams fake fiancé loud enough?" Orm smirked. "Too subtle. Needs more gold." They roamed the boutique, trading comments and touching fabrics, slipping into the easy rhythm that made shopping together feel natural. But even that comfortable flow jolted to a halt when a woman stepped out from behind one of the display counters. "Ling!" Orm glanced over to see a tall, stylish woman with a sharp bob and bold red lipstick smiling at them. She wore a fitted black pencil skirt and heels, clearly someone who took her fashion seriously. Ling stiffened slightly. "Oh, hey, Molly," Ling said, her tone suddenly cautious. Orm didn't miss it. Her gaze flicked between them. Molly. The name rang a faint bell. Ling had mentioned her once, a whirlwind thing, short-lived and unimportant. Or so she'd said. "You look good," Molly said, eyeing Ling with something more than just nostalgia. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Just picking something out for our engagement party," Ling replied coolly, sliding an arm around Orm's waist. Orm stiffened, then forced a polite smile. "Hi." Molly's eyes flicked to her, mildly surprised. "Oh. Wow. Congratulations." "Thanks," Orm said quickly. "We're just browsing." Molly lingered for a moment, like she wanted to say more. Then, with a tight smile, she nodded. "Well, enjoy. I'm around if you need styling help." They watched her walk away. Orm turned to Ling. "That was her?" "Yep," Ling said, tone flat. "She's pretty." "Barely." Orm laughed. "Jealous much?" "Nope," Ling said. "Not even a little." But her hand stayed firmly on Orm's waist as they walked to the next rack. "Sure," Orm muttered. "You look real chill." Orm pretended to be engrossed in a rack of chiffon dresses, but she was hyper-aware of the way Ling's jaw clenched every time they passed a mirror. Her usual swagger was still there, chin high, hand possessive at the small of Orm's back, but it had a stiffness to it, like her confidence had been poked at. "That bothered you," Orm said, trying to sound casual. Ling glanced at her. "Not really." "Liar," Ling sighed. "It's not that it was Molly, it's just, I don't like old flings popping back into my orbit when I'm trying to focus on something new." Orm's brows lifted. "Something new?" Ling didn't answer. She just pulled a long ivory gown off the rack and held it against Orm. "This would look good on you. Don't change the subject." "You want me to talk about Molly?" Ling gave her a dry look. "She meant nothing. I barely remember why I liked her." Orm hesitated. "You always say that. About everyone." Ling's gaze sharpened. "You know why that is?" Orm opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't have an answer. Ling smiled faintly, tucking the dress under one arm. "I'll tell you at home." Before Orm could press further, a shop assistant came by and offered to start a fitting room for them. Ling handed off the dress and grabbed another one for herself, slipping right back into charm mode. But Orm's mind wasn't on clothes anymore. Not really. They were play-acting in public. But that look in Ling's eyes when she talked about Molly, the irritation, the protectiveness when she introduced Orm as her fiancé, none of that had felt fake, and Orm wasn't sure what scared her more, that she was imagining things, or that she wasn't. Let's just pretend. Chapter 8, Part 3. Back in the dressing room area, Orm sat on the velvet bench as Ling emerged from behind a curtain in a midnight blue dress that clung to her like sin. Orm blinked a few times, swallowed, then looked down at her lap. "You hate it?" Ling asked, smirking. "I didn't say that," Orm muttered, ears red. Ling laughed softly, stepping forward and turning so she could see herself in the three-way mirror. "I bet Molly's still watching." "Please don't say her name like that." "Like what?" "Like you're testing me." Ling's reflection met her gaze in the mirror. "I'm not testing you." Orm shifted uncomfortably. "You said she meant nothing." "She did." Orm looked up. "Just like all the others?" There was a beat of silence. Ling turned, walking slowly back toward her. "You think I just go around collecting girls?" Orm shrugged. "You've said it yourself. Most of them don't mean anything. Just fun." "And you think you're the same?" Ling asked softly. Orm's heart thumped. "Aren't I?" Ling knelt down in front of her, hands resting on her knees. "You want to know why they didn't mean anything?" Orm didn't answer. Ling tilted her head. "Because they weren't you." Orm's breath caught. "But that's not something I want to say here," Ling continued. "Not with dressing rooms and security cameras around." "Then when?" Ling's eyes burned into hers. "I'll tell you at home." Just then, the sales assistant knocked gently on the wall. "Everything going okay?" Orm jumped. Ling stood, smoothing her dress. "Perfect," she called back. They moved on to the next selection, but Orm barely remembered what she tried on after that. Ling's words echoed in her head like a song she couldn't turn off. "Because they weren't you." What the hell was she supposed to do with that? As they made their way toward the accessories section, Orm found herself trailing behind. Ling walked ahead, her posture effortless, chatting politely with the assistant and pointing out necklaces and earrings. Anyone watching would see a stunning woman with her fiancé shopping for their big day. But Orm's insides were a storm. Because they weren't you. That line refused to settle. It clung to her ribs, squeezed behind her lungs every time she tried to breathe. Was it just more pretend talk? Or had Ling said it too easily for it to be fake? She thought back to all the times Ling had come to her rescue, the way she always stepped between Orm and the world, how she teased and spoiled her but never let anyone else get close. Maybe it had always meant more than friendship. Maybe Orm had just been too scared to name it. Ling turned suddenly, holding up a pair of gold earrings. "These would look gorgeous on you. Try them." Orm moved toward her on autopilot, letting Ling reach up and fasten them gently. Her fingers brushed behind Orm's ear. The touch was brief, but electric. "You're quiet," Ling murmured. Orm nodded. "Just thinking." "About what I said?" Orm looked into her eyes. "Yes." Ling didn't smile this time. Her expression softened. "I meant it." Orm opened her mouth, but again, nothing came out. "We're done here," Ling said suddenly, snapping her fingers. "Let's go home." Orm barely managed to nod. As they left the boutique, Ling held the door open and waited for her like always. But something had shifted. Something real was waking up between them, and Orm wasn't sure if she was ready. But it was already too late not to feel it. Let's just pretend. Chapter 8, Part 4. The moment they stepped into the fitting room with a few final outfit choices, the door clicked shut behind them and something shifted. The air turned thick. Orm leaned against the wall, pretending to be interested in the slinky dress hanging on a hook. Ling dropped the shopping bags and turned to her with that unreadable look, the one that made Orm's stomach twist and her knees feel loose. "Are you okay?" Ling asked. Orm nodded, too quickly. Ling stepped closer. "You sure?" There was something in her voice, gentler than teasing, softer than usual. Orm met her eyes, and her breath caught. I don't know how to deal with you sometimes," Orm whispered. Ling smiled faintly, then stopped trying. She reached out, and when her fingers slid under Orm's chin, tipping her face up, Orm didn't resist. Their mouths met in a soft kiss, so soft it hurt. Like Ling was afraid she'd shatter if she pressed too hard. Orm's hands gripped Ling's shirt as Ling deepened the kiss, one hand cupping her cheek, the other sliding around her waist to pull her flush against her. She didn't feel fake. She didn't feel like a friend. She felt like a fire Orm wanted to throw herself into. Ling pressed her against the wall, kissing down her neck, her hand sliding lower, fingers brushing the hem of her skirt. Orm gasped into her ear. "Ling, someone could—" Too late. A knock on the door. "Excuse me, ladies. Everything okay in there?" Orm shoved Ling back, face burning. Ling straightened calmly, smoothing her shirt like she'd just been adjusting a hemline. "All good," Ling said without missing a beat. The assistant's footsteps retreated, but Orm's heart didn't stop racing. "You're terrible," she hissed. Ling smirked. "You love it." She wasn't wrong. Orm's back hit the wall with a gentle thud, and her breath hitched. The closeness, the scent of Ling's perfume, warm, musky, and faintly floral, made it impossible to think clearly. Ling's lips hovered just above hers, eyes searching. "You don't have to pretend, you know." "Pretend what?" Orm asked, voice small. "That you don't want this." Orm wanted to deny it. She wanted to shove her back and say this was all still fake, a stupid cover story gone too far. But instead, she grabbed Ling's collar and pulled her back in. Their mouths clashed again, more desperate this time. Ling kissed like she was starving, and Orm responded like she'd been hungry all her life. Their bodies pressed together, limbs tangled in a slow, intoxicating rhythm. Orm's hands slid into Ling's hair, tugging her closer, while Ling's fingers found the bare skin at her waist, thumbs tracing circles that left sparks in their wake. "Ling," Orm gasped against her lips. "We're in public." Ling's smirk was pure sin. "Locked door. You're impossible. You're irresistible." Orm tried not to giggle, but it slipped out anyway, and Ling laughed too, a breathy sound that melted between them as their mouths found each other again. Ling kissed her like she owned her, and for a dizzying second, Orm didn't mind being owned. It was the knock that broke the spell. "Ladies?" Orm jumped like she'd been burned, practically stumbling away. Ling casually leaned against the wall like she hadn't just been seconds away from grinding her into the bench. "Everything's fine," Ling called, voice steady. Orm smacked her shoulder. "I hate you." Ling leaned down and whispered against her ear. "No, you don't." She didn't. Orm adjusted her blouse and tried to calm her pulse, still flushed and breathless. Ling, of course, looked like she'd just stepped off a runway. "You're dangerous," Orm muttered. Ling winked. "Only for you." Let's just pretend. Chapter 8, Part 5. By the time they pulled back into the estate's driveway, the sun had started to dip, painting the sky in streaks of gold and rose. The mansion was already buzzing with preparations. Florists unboxing bouquets, catering trucks unloading trays of food, and decorators hauling ribbons and fairy lights toward the main garden. Orm stepped out of the car and stared. They weren't kidding when they said full engagement party. Ling came around the other side and grabbed their shopping bags. "What did you expect? Your family doesn't do anything halfway." Inside, the smell of baking pastries and fresh lilies hit them like a wave. Orm's mother was barking instructions to a poor staff member who looked like he'd forgotten how to breathe. Her aunts were fussing over silverware and centerpieces. Her grandmother waved from the couch and called out, "Don't forget to pick your entrance music." Ling leaned in. "Entrance music?" Orm groaned. "I'm going to kill my mother." They made it up to Orm's room with effort, dodging champagne crates, nosy cousins, and an uncle who insisted Ling explain how they met again, as if he hadn't heard it 3 times already. Finally alone, Orm tossed herself on the bed with a loud sigh. "This is insane." Ling placed the bags down gently. "You say that like you're not enjoying it." Orm rolled onto her side and looked at her. "Are you?" Ling sat beside her, face unreadable. "Depends." "On what?" "On whether I get to finish what I wanted to tell you earlier." Orm sat up. "What, About your exes? Ling nodded. And you. There was a beat, then a knock on the door, Orm's mom shouting that the seamstress was here for last-minute measurements. Orm groaned again. Later? Ling smiled. Later. Downstairs, a string quartet was already rehearsing in the side courtyard, the soft hum of violins floating through the open windows. Orm peeked out and spotted her brother directing a team of servers in setting up wine glasses on every white linen-covered table. I can't believe they planned all this in a week, Orm muttered as she stepped to the window. They probably started the minute you told them we were engaged, Ling teased. Orm turned and crossed her arms. You agreed to that without even blinking. Ling shrugged with a smirk. I figured it was part of the job description. But you didn't hesitate. No, Ling said. I didn't. Orm opened her mouth to ask why, but Ling walked over to the vanity and picked up one of the silk ribbons resting there. You'll look good in this, she said, wrapping the ribbon gently around Orm's wrist. You always look good when you're flustered. Orm rolled her eyes, but the blush betrayed her. She walked over and sat beside Ling on the bed. You said earlier you'd tell me why the others never meant anything to you. Ling set the ribbon down and looked at her seriously. Because they weren't you. Orm's heart jumped. Ling reached over, brushing Orm's hair behind her ear. And because I never wanted anyone else to stay. There was a weight in the air that wasn't there before. Another knock on the door, Orm's brother this time, reminding them dinner was being pushed back an hour for golden hour photography. You're the stars, remember? He shouted. As his footsteps faded, Orm let out a nervous laugh. Stars, right. Ling leaned in and kissed her forehead. You've always been the star, Orm. I'm just the girl who got lucky enough to orbit you. And for the first time, Orm wasn't sure it was fake anymore. Let's just pretend. Chapter 9. Part 1. Orm barely got a moment of peace. The house had become a wedding factory, and she was the reluctant product being assembled on a conveyor belt of family duties. Every time she tried to sneak off to find Ling, someone else grabbed her by the arm with a new task. Orm, honey, you haven't finalized the wine list, her Aunt Ern cried from the kitchen, waving a clipboard like it was a weapon. Moments later, her grandmother was shouting for her to inspect the ivory napkins. Then her mom, May, dragged her upstairs to try on hairpins with pearls, claiming it was urgent. It was like the universe was conspiring to keep her and Ling apart, just when Orm had finally worked up the courage to talk. After everything that happened between them, after all the unspoken tension, all the closeness, all the not-so-pretend moments, Orm needed clarity. But that clarity was apparently on pause while the decorator needed her opinion on whether the rose arches should be placed at the north entrance or the south terrace. Ling, meanwhile, was also busy. She was helping Jin with the seating chart and charming a pair of elderly uncles who had been skeptical of the whole two brides thing until Ling sat between them and told stories about how she used to chase Orm with a water gun when they were kids. Every time Orm passed by, she would catch Ling's gaze, and every time Ling would smile, soft, patient, waiting. Orm wished she could run to her, but instead, she was swept away to another meeting with the photographer about golden hour poses. By the time the sun began to dip and the household started to quiet, Orm had said yes to 17 decisions she didn't care about, and still hadn't gotten to say the one thing she needed to. Even her younger cousin got involved, dragging her to the front garden to look at where the dessert table should go. This way the guests can Instagram it, she chirped. Orm wanted to scream. She wanted to tear off her pastel schedule sash and shout, I'm not even really engaged. But that wasn't true anymore, was it? She caught another glimpse of Ling across the garden, now crouching to help the gardener fix one of the fairy light cords. Her hair was pulled into a loose braid, her white sundress clinging to her back in the afternoon heat. She looked calm, elegant, grounded. Nothing rattled Ling, not even this chaos. Orm, on the other hand, felt like she was unraveling, because underneath the pretense and pressure, something real had bloomed between them, And if they didn't talk about it soon, it might wither before it had a chance to become anything at all. "I need 5 minutes," Orm called out to her mother. "You'll get 10 with the florist after we approve the cake sketch," May shouted back, mistaking her daughter's plea for something else. Orm slumped onto the bench under the jasmine trellis, biting her lower lip. She wanted to go to Ling. She wanted to hear her voice, not across the garden, but next to her ear. She wanted to feel Ling's fingers on her wrist again, grounding her. She needed more than just glances and smiles. She needed truth. But all she got was another text from her aunt. "Meet me in the front hall. The violinist wants to know if you prefer Canon in D or 1,000 Years." Orm resisted the urge to scream. "I don't care," she mumbled to herself. But she did care. About Ling, and she was running out of time to tell her. Let's just pretend. Chapter 9, Part 2. The dressing room was a cloud of ivory tulle and scattered pins by the time Orm finished trying on her gown for the 3rd time. The seamstress kept fluttering around her like a hummingbird, mumbling about hems and hip fittings while Orm stood half numb in front of the mirror. "You look radiant, darling," her aunt gushed, snapping pictures for the family group chat. Orm managed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. After the last pin was secured and yet another lipstick shade was rejected by her mom, Orm was finally released. Before anyone else could snatch her for the next task, she darted out of the room and made a beeline for the West Wing, where she knew Ling was getting ready. She passed the decorator mid-argument with a staffer about whether orchids or peonies better matched the table linens. The poor man was clutching a tiny ceramic pot, as if it contained the secrets of the universe. Orm paused, tried to offer input, but the minute she said, "Maybe the orchids are more summery," they both beamed like she'd solved world hunger and resumed their frenzied discussion. She kept going. At the end of the hall, she found the door cracked open. Ling was inside, standing in front of the full-length mirror, slipping into a sleek champagne-colored gown that hugged her, like it was made for her skin alone. Orm's breath caught. Ling turned slightly and caught her gaze in the mirror. "There you are." "I've been trying to get to you all day," Orm said, stepping in. Ling smiled. "I noticed." And just like that, the chaos of the house melted behind her. The dress Orm had tried on was beautiful, off-shoulder silk with a sweetheart neckline, subtle sequins catching light like stars. But she couldn't care less about how she looked. Not when her heart had been thudding wildly all day from things left unsaid. She passed another staging area in the hallway where someone was vigorously adjusting flower pots for the 3rd time. The decorator turned to her in desperation. "Orm, quick, straight line or curved arrangement?" She looked at the line of porcelain vases lining the base of the staircase. "Curved?" He beamed. "Yes, I knew you had taste." She didn't stay to hear the rest. Her heels clicked softly on the marble as she reached the West Wing. With every step, her nerves crept in. What would Ling say? Would she bring up last night? The fight? The kiss in the dressing room? The door to the bridal suite was open just a sliver, but it felt like a portal into another world, one where none of the chaos mattered, where it was just them. Ling's gown shimmered with a gold sheen as she smoothed it over her hips. She hadn't noticed Orm yet. For a moment, Orm just stared at the graceful slope of Ling's shoulders, the soft waves of her hair pinned up with delicate crystal clips. She looked ethereal, and yet real, tangible, hers. Ling finally looked up and smiled. "There you are." The sound of her voice grounded Orm instantly. "I've been trying to get to you all day," Orm said, stepping into the room. Ling turned fully, hands resting casually at her sides. "I noticed." The tension in Orm's chest eased. "I'm glad you came," Ling said, her voice gentler than it had been in days. "We need to talk." Orm nodded. "I know. I want to." And for the first time all day, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Let's just pretend. Chapter 9, Part 3. Ling motioned to the love seat in the corner of the room, away from the bustle just beyond the closed door. Orm sat, smoothing the folds of her dress as Ling settled beside her. "I know things have been Messy, Ling began, her tone unusually tender. And I've tried to be patient, to not pressure you. But I think I've waited long enough to say what I feel. Orm turned to her, unsure if her heart was racing from nerves or anticipation. Ling's gaze didn't waver. I want to be with you, Orm. For real. Not pretend. Not just because of the arrangement or your family. I want this. Orm blinked. Ling. Ling reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind Orm's ear. I've never done this before. Not like this. I never let anyone in like I've let you in. You've dated people. Flings. Crushes. Nothing serious, Ling said. Because I always knew, deep down, that I was waiting for someone who actually mattered. Someone who scared me because they could break my heart if they wanted. Orm stared at her, lips parting slightly. Ling smiled. That person was always you. The room felt too small for how big Orm's feelings suddenly became. Her throat tightened. Her fingers curled on her lap. I thought. I was imagining it, Orm whispered. You weren't, Ling said. I held back because I didn't want to lose you, but now not saying anything feels worse. The silence that followed buzzed with meaning. Finally, Orm reached for Ling's hand. You were really waiting for me all this time? Ling squeezed her fingers gently, every second. Orm had spent weeks telling herself that this was just a game, that none of it was real, that Ling was just doing her a favor because they were friends. But now, sitting here with Ling's fingers brushing hers so gently, so deliberately, it felt like every wall she had built to keep that belief alive was crumbling. I never thought you felt that way, she said, her voice barely audible. Ling leaned back slightly, watching her. You don't have to say anything now. I just needed you to know. But why me? Orm asked, not out of insecurity, but sheer disbelief. You could have anyone. Ling chuckled softly. That's the thing. I didn't want anyone. I wanted you, even when I didn't fully understand what that meant yet. Orm's chest tightened. All those years, we were just friends. Were we? Ling tilted her head, teasing a little. Or was I just too scared to admit I was in love with my best friend? The word hit Orm like a crash of waves. Love. Orm looked down at their intertwined hands, heart pounding. I don't know if I'm ready. Ling didn't flinch. That's okay. I'm not asking you to be ready overnight. I just want you to know where I stand. You don't have to pretend anymore. Not with me. The room fell quiet again, but this time it felt like safety, like truth settling in between them. Orm leaned her head against Ling's shoulder. Thank you for waiting. Ling pressed her lips to the top of her head. Always. Orm didn't pull away. Not this time. The noises of the house, footsteps, laughter, voices calling her name, felt far away. Here, wrapped in Ling's presence, Orm felt like the version of herself she wanted to be. Braver, softer, loved. Maybe she wasn't ready to say everything yet, but she was ready to stop running. Let's just pretend. Chapter 9, Part 4. Orm slowly sat back up, her eyes still wide and searching Ling's face. But can you really settle down? She asked softly. I mean, you've never done the relationship thing. Not really. Ling's expression didn't change, but her fingers stilled on Orm's hand. You think I'm not capable of it? Orm hesitated. I think you're used to your freedom. And I'm scared that one day you'll wake up and realize this wasn't what you wanted after all. Ling was quiet for a moment. Then, without breaking eye contact, she said, Do you trust me? The question hit Orm harder than she expected. Ling's tone wasn't defensive. It was steady, gentle, like a rope being held out in the dark. Orm opened her mouth, then closed it again. She looked down at their hands, then back up. Yes, she said finally. Ling exhaled slowly. Then believe me when I say I want this, not just the party, Not just the role. I want the life that comes after it. Orm blinked back the pressure building in her eyes. Why me? Ling smiled. Because you see every part of me and still let me be exactly who I am. I thought I annoyed you half the time, Orm mumbled. You do. But you also make me laugh, make me think, make me feel everything. Orm didn't know whether to cry or kiss her again. Ling leaned in, her forehead brushing gently against Orm's. We'll figure this out. Together. And for the first time in days, Orm didn't feel like she was acting anymore. Orm let the moment settle between them, searching Ling's eyes for any trace of doubt. But there was none. Just warmth and certainty. You always make it look so easy, she said. Being brave. Ling smiled wryly. I'm only brave when it's for you. Orm laughed under her breath, shaking her head. You say the most unfair things. I mean every word.
The dressing room lights softened around them. For a long time they sat close, no longer rushed, no longer running. Orm reached up and adjusted Ling's collar, letting her fingers linger. I've been terrified, Orm admitted, that I was the only one falling. Ling took her hand. I fell a long time ago. You just didn't see it. I didn't want to, she said, because if I did, it would mean this was real, and real things break. Ling lifted her chin. Then let's not break it. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything unsaid. Orm leaned in, letting her lips brush Ling's in the softest whisper of a kiss. It wasn't like the ones they shared when pretending. It was raw and slow and honest. When they finally pulled apart, Ling traced her thumb along Orm's jaw. I love you. Orm's breath caught. She didn't say it back, not yet, but she didn't look away either. Instead, she nodded. Okay, let's try. Ling beamed. Good, because I already RSVP'd for forever. Orm rolled her eyes. You're ridiculous, but you trust me. Orm gave a tiny smile. With everything. From outside, they could hear voices calling Orm's name. Her mother, a cousin, someone asking if the napkins had been delivered. Ling stood and offered her hand. Time to face the chaos? Orm took it. Only if you stay close. Ling pulled her in. You couldn't drag me away. As they walked out together, side by side, the noise of the world returned, but it felt manageable now, because Ling was beside her. And that was more than enough. Let's just pretend. Chapter 9, Part 5. By the time the engagement party officially began, the mansion was glowing, every chandelier lit, every table perfectly set with crisp linen, flower arrangements, and little gold place cards with swirling calligraphy. The scent of fresh roses mixed with the aroma of grilled seafood and baked desserts wafting from the kitchen. Orm stood at the top of the staircase, dressed in a pale pink gown that shimmered with every movement. Her heart thudded as she looked out at the sea of family and friends arriving. Ling appeared beside her, effortlessly stunning in her tailored cream suit. Not too masculine, not too soft, just Ling, perfectly balanced and unmistakably hers. The moment they descended the stairs, all heads turned. There they are, Aunt May squealed. The future wives. Orm flushed. Grandma B waved her cane from the corner. I give them 3 months before they're pregnant. With dogs. Get them 2 golden retrievers. Mark my words. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Orm wanted to be embarrassed, but then Ling leaned in and murmured, You'd look cute with a retriever. Oh my God, Orm hissed, elbowing her. Ling grinned and pressed a kiss to Orm's cheek, right in front of everyone. More cheers erupted. Uncle Ben clinked his glass loudly. Speech! Speech! No, no, Orm protested, waving her hands. Let's just eat. Let them settle in first, her mother called, her voice proud and full of delight. Orm looked up at Ling, who gently squeezed her hand and mouthed, breathe. And somehow, just like that, everything felt okay. Even if it was pretend, this moment felt real. The clinking of glasses and upbeat music filled the space as more guests filtered in, many of them longtime family friends Orm hadn't seen in years. Everyone wanted to meet the famous fiancé. "Oh, you're even prettier in person," one of her aunts gushed to Ling, clutching her hands. "And tall," another added. Orm always did like tall girls, though she never admitted it. Orm rolled her eyes. "Can we talk about anything else?" "Not tonight," her mother said gleefully. "Tonight is about love." Orm glanced sideways at Ling, who simply raised an eyebrow, clearly enjoying herself. They moved through the garden where more guests mingled with champagne flutes and plates of appetizers. Orm greeted cousins, smiled politely, and laughed when she needed to. But all the while she was aware of Ling's hand resting gently on her lower back. "Everyone's watching us," Orm whispered. "They're jealous," Ling whispered back. "They wish their engagements were this hot." "You're impossible," Ling leaned close again. "But you like me." Orm tried not to grin, but failed. Later, after a toast from her brother that included a half-roast about their childhood and Orm's inability to cook pasta, the evening mellowed into candlelight and music. They danced once, twice, and then again. Slow songs, swaying steps. At one point, Orm's cheek rested on Ling's shoulder as a quiet instrumental played. For a night built on a lie, everything felt too perfect. But maybe, Orm thought as she let herself be held in Ling's arms, some lies had a way of turning true. As the evening drew on, Orm and Ling took a moment to slip away to the balcony. The night air was cooler now, scented with jasmine and a hint of ocean breeze. Fairy lights twinkled above them like stars caught in motion. Ling rested her elbows on the railing, gazing out. "You looked beautiful tonight." Orm, still flushed from dancing, glanced at her sideways. "You didn't look so bad yourself." There was a pause. Ling turned her head. "You still glad it's me?" Orm met her gaze. "Always." And in that quiet moment, surrounded by people who thought this was just the beginning of their happily ever after, Orm realized maybe it was.
Let's Just Pretend, Chapter 10. Let's Just Pretend, Chapter 10, Part 1. The engagement party was in full swing, and Orm had never felt more uneasy. The garden was lit beautifully with strings of golden lights hanging overhead, casting a warm glow on the gathered guests. Elegant music played in the background, and laughter floated through the air. Yet none of it managed to distract Orm from what she was witnessing. Ling stood near the refreshment table, chatting casually with one of Orm's cousins, Anya, the flirty one with long lashes and a knack for turning every conversation into something suggestive. She was giggling, twirling her hair, and inching closer to Ling with every laugh. And Ling? She was smiling politely, even charmingly, though her body language stayed closed off. Still, to Orm, it felt like watching a slow car crash. From across the yard, Orm clenched her champagne glass tighter. "She's just being polite," she muttered to herself. "It's Ling. She always plays it cool." But the tightening in her chest didn't agree. Anya leaned in, her hand brushing Ling's arm. That did it. Orm abandoned her spot by the fountain and stormed over, trying to look composed, trying not to glare. "Hey, everything good here?" she asked, sliding between Ling and Anya with a little too much force to be casual. Anya blinked, then smiled with thinly veiled amusement. "Perfect. I was just telling your fiancé how lucky you are." "Yeah, I know," Orm said, her voice saccharine but sharp. She laced her fingers with Ling's and tugged her slightly back. "I don't need reminding." Ling looked down at their hands, one eyebrow raised in faint surprise. "Orm," she said softly, once Anya had walked off with a shrug. "Was that necessary?" Orm didn't answer right away. The jealousy was irrational, she knew that, but it didn't stop her from feeling it. Not when it came to Ling. Not when other people got to look at her like that. Not when Orm had no idea what was real and what wasn't anymore. "I just didn't like her touching you," she said finally, not meeting Ling's eyes. Ling's brows rose slightly, and her lips curved, not into a smirk, but something softer, something unreadable. "Noted." They stood there for a moment, hand in hand under the lights, and Orm felt more exposed than ever. Orm could still feel her heart pounding even as Anya walked away. It was a cocktail of feelings: jealousy, panic, confusion that buzzed beneath her skin like electricity. She wasn't supposed to feel this strongly. That wasn't part of the deal. They were faking it. She had reminded herself of that 1,000 times since Ling moved into her room, into her bed, into every waking thought. And yet, the idea of anyone else seeing Ling, really seeing her, made Orm's blood boil. Ling tilted her head. "You okay?" Orm forced a smile. "Yeah, just party jitters." Ling didn't push further, but she didn't let go of her hand either. That alone made something ache deep in Orm's chest. They moved to the edge of the garden, closer to the lantern-lit trees. The buzz of conversation continued behind them, a pleasant hum that felt distant now. "She was flirting with you," Orm blurted, hating how petulant she sounded. Ling gave a short laugh. "She flirts with everyone." "She touched your arm." "And I didn't let her touch anything else," Ling said calmly. "Orm, I've been yours this whole time, even before this arrangement." That stopped Orm cold. Her head whipped around to look at Ling. "What does that mean?" Ling's gaze flicked to her face. "It means you don't have to compete for me. Not with Anya. Not with anyone." "But," Orm swallowed, throat suddenly dry. "But we're not actually—" Ling didn't wait for her to finish. "Aren't we?" That shut her up. They stood in silence for a long moment, tension hanging thick between them. Then Ling gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind Orm's ear. Her fingers brushed Orm's cheek, sending sparks down her spine. "You're the only one I see, Orm," she said quietly. "Even when you're trying to pretend none of this means anything." Orm didn't know how to respond. She couldn't look away, but she couldn't speak either. The air between them crackled with something bigger than either of them had expected. And when Ling finally smiled, soft and knowing, Orm felt like the world had narrowed to just them under the string lights, every lie they'd told now tangled up in a truth too big to deny. Let's just pretend. Chapter 10, Part 2. The party buzzed around them. Champagne flutes clinking, guests laughing, soft music floating through the garden. But Orm felt like she was about to combust. Even after Anya left, more and more people had come to talk to Ling, complimenting her, leaning in too close, laughing too hard at her jokes. It wasn't Ling's fault. She was magnetic. She didn't have to try, and that was exactly what made it worse. They stood side by side as one of Orm's old family friends, a tall, glamorous girl named Ploy, chatted animatedly with Ling. Orm barely registered the conversation. All she saw was Ploy's hand lingering on Ling's arm again. Why did everyone think it was okay to touch her? "Can we go inside?" Orm said, her voice tighter than she meant. Ling turned slightly. "We're in the middle of a conversation." "With her?" Orm snapped. Ling blinked. "What's going on with you?" "Nothing," Orm said too quickly. "Forget it." But Ling didn't. She gently placed a hand on Orm's back and guided her away from the crowd, into the house where the chatter and clinking dulled to a hum. "Talk to me," Ling said. "What is this really about?" Orm stared at her, throat tight, pulse racing. "You don't get it. You're so used to people throwing themselves at you, you don't even notice." Ling looked taken aback. "And you think I'm entertaining them?" "No," Orm said. "But I don't know what this is. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel." Ling's expression softened. "You're supposed to feel like you're mine. Because you are." Something in Orm cracked. "We're not real, Ling." The words echoed in the hall, louder than she intended. Ling froze. "We're not," Orm continued, voice shaking. "This whole thing, this relationship, it's fake. We both agreed." Ling stepped back slightly. "Is that really what you think?" Orm's chest heaved. "It's what it is." For a moment, Ling didn't move. Her gaze searched Orm's face, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded once, curtly. "Got it," she said. "Ling—" Orm reached out, regret already bubbling in her throat. But Ling shook her head. "No, it's okay. You've made yourself clear." She turned and walked away, heels clicking softly against the marble, leaving Orm standing alone by the stairs. The silence that followed was deafening. Orm remained frozen, heart pounding in her ears. She hadn't meant to say it like that. Or maybe she had. Maybe she wanted to test the boundary she wasn't ready to admit she had already crossed. Behind her, she could hear the party continuing outside, clinking glasses, bursts of laughter, the band tuning their instruments for the next song. But in the hallway, it felt like everything had stopped. Orm had never felt so alone in a house full of people. She sank onto the edge of the grand staircase, gripping the banister with trembling fingers. "What the hell did I just do?" she whispered to herself. The words had come out so fast, so raw, a defense mechanism wrapped in hurt pride. She had watched Ling pull away and had done the only thing she knew how to do, push harder. But it had worked too well. Orm covered her face with her hands. The weight of the lie she'd clung to was crushing her. She had told everyone, and herself, that this was fake, that this wasn't supposed to mean anything, that she could control it, except she couldn't. Ling had been more real than anyone else in her life. She had seen through Orm's every wall, stood by her when she was at her most bratty and unbearable. And when Ling had started looking at her like she was precious, Orm had panicked. Now she'd shattered whatever had been building between them. The door creaked faintly as someone stepped into the hallway. Orm's breath hitched, but it wasn't Ling, just a staff member carrying empty plates. Orm stood slowly, swallowing down the knot in her throat. She couldn't fix it yet, not until she figured out what she really wanted and what she was willing to risk for it. Let's just pretend. Chapter 10, Part 3. Orm walked back out into the garden, with her heart dragging behind her like an anchor. She half expected everything to look different, for the entire party to have turned gray in the wake of what she'd just said. But the guests were still mingling, laughing, clinking glasses like nothing had happened. She spotted her mother talking with Aunt Maylie and a few of the cousins near the dessert table. Determined, Orm approached them, pulse hammering in her ears. Her mother looked up and smiled. "Orm, darling, where did you run off to?" Orm opened her mouth. Ling," her voice cracked. It's not real." There was a beat of silence. Then Aunt Maylie snorted into her champagne. Orm blinked. "You knew?" "We've known for a while," her mother said gently. "At least most of us." "How?" Orm asked, stunned. Aunt Maylie rolled her eyes. "You really thought you could fake a relationship in a house full of nosy aunts, cousins, and grandmothers? Please, one of the twins overheard you that first night in the hallway. They told their mom. Word got around." Orm's jaw dropped. "And no one said anything?" "We saw the way you looked at her, Orm," her mother said with a shrug. "It stopped feeling fake pretty quickly." "I didn't." Orm trailed off. "I didn't know how I felt." Aunt Maylie patted her shoulder. "Sweetheart, everyone else did." "Everyone but me," Orm whispered, feeling her cheeks burn. Her mother stepped closer. "You weren't fooling anyone but yourself." Orm's throat tightened. The words landed with a painful kind of clarity. All this time she had been so focused on preserving the illusion, on protecting herself, that she hadn't noticed she was the only one clinging to it. Everyone else had already seen the truth. She looked toward the path Ling had taken. It felt too late. Maybe it was. "But she's gone," Orm murmured, more to herself than anyone else. "She left because she thought you didn't care," her mother said. "The question is, do you?" Orm's lips trembled. "I don't know how to fix it." "You start by being honest," her mother said. "And this time, not just with everyone else." Orm nodded slowly, her chest aching with the weight of everything she hadn't said. The truth had never been more terrifying, but it was the only thing that might bring Ling back. Uncle Danai wandered over, holding a half-eaten skewer of grilled prawns. I told you the night she brought Ling home, he said, addressing no one in particular. She looked at that girl like she hung the moon. I said the same thing, Aunt Maylie agreed. But did anyone listen to me? No. You say that about every couple, her mother said with a smirk. I'm right at least 70% of the time, Aunt Maylie replied proudly. Orm stood there in stunned silence, letting the voices of her family wash over her. She wasn't used to them being so perceptive. Loud, yes. Overbearing, definitely. But emotionally insightful? That was new. Her younger cousin popped her head out from behind the drink table. I thought it was real since you always smiled like an idiot when she brought you your coffee in the mornings. I thought it was real when I caught them in the kitchen at 2 a.m. Once, said someone else. Ling was cooking for her. Really? Orm said, incredulous. You all talked about this? Of course we did, her mom said. We love gossip. But more than that, we love you. And we saw the way Ling took care of you. We knew this was more than a game to her. Orm pressed her fingers to her temples. I feel like an idiot. Her mom leaned in and kissed her on the forehead. You're not. You're scared. That's all. I thought I could control it, keep it from becoming real. But it did become real, her mother said gently. And now that it is, you can't pretend anymore. So stop trying. The conversation faded as Orm sat down on a nearby bench under the fairy lights, the laughter of her family fading behind her. Her chest was hollow. The truth was out now, not just to them, but to her. Ling had walked away not because the relationship had started fake, but because Orm insisted on keeping it that way, and Orm wasn't sure she could live with the silence Ling left behind. Let's Just Pretend. Chapter 10, Part 4. Orm stayed seated on the garden bench, her eyes fixed on the twinkle lights overhead. Her family had drifted back to the party, giving her space, but their voices echoed in her head. You weren't fooling anyone but yourself. The words clung to her, a mirror she couldn't look away from. How long had Ling been waiting for her to catch up? How long had her family seen what she had refused to? The bench creaked as someone sat down beside her. It was her mom again, holding 2 small glasses of wine. She handed one to Orm, who accepted it silently. She loves you, her mom said, without preamble. Orm blinked at her. You think so? I know so, she said. She looks at you like she can't believe you're real. Like if she blinks, she might lose you. Orm stared into her wine. I pushed her away. I said the worst thing I could have said. Then go say the right thing. Orm shook her head. What if she's done with me? Then you'll know, her mom said softly. But at least you won't be wondering. Aunt Maylie joined them, holding a plate of mini tarts. Sorry to interrupt, but I heard emotional breakthroughs require sugar. Orm gave a weak laugh. I just want to be sure, she said. How do I know this isn't just guilt or pressure or confusion? Her mom looked at her for a long moment. How do you feel when she's near? Like I can breathe, Orm whispered. Like everything makes sense. Then that's love, Aunt Maylie said, popping a tart in her mouth. Congratulations. It's messy and terrifying, but it's yours. Orm leaned back and closed her eyes. She wasn't sure how to fix what had broken. But maybe fixing it wasn't the point. Maybe honesty was the first step to something better, and she was finally ready to take it. Orm swirled the wine in her glass, watching the crimson reflection ripple and distort. Her voice was quieter now, stripped of its usual sarcasm. I didn't think it could be real because we started as friends, because it was supposed to be fake. Her mom nodded. Sometimes love grows where you least expect it. That doesn't make it less real. You leaned on her and she caught you every time. She's always been there, Orm murmured, her chest tightening, even when I was awful. That's called loyalty, her aunt said. It's rare, and it's worth holding on to. Orm let out a bitter laugh. I ruined it. No, her mom said firmly. You ran from it. That's different. But you can still stop running. Orm turned to her. I don't know how. By choosing her, her mom said simply. Not because it's easy, not because it's safe, but because she's who you want. Orm stared at the string lights tangled in the trees. The garden looked magical, like something out of a dream, but she felt like a ghost inside it, hollow and aching for something she hadn't even realized she'd lost. "I'm scared," she confessed. "What if I tell her and she still leaves?" "Then at least you'll have said it," Aunt Maylie said. "And if she stays, you'll know she chose you knowing everything." The weight in Orm's chest shifted, not gone but lighter. "You think she'll listen?" Orm asked, hopeful but fragile. "She's been listening all along," her mom said. "You just need to speak." Orm drained her wine and stood up, her jaw set. The path ahead was still unclear, but the next step wasn't. It was time to stop pretending, time to stop hiding, time to find Ling and tell her the truth. Let's just pretend. Chapter 10, Part 5. The party went on around her, music drifting through the garden, the soft clinking of glasses, laughter in bursts like firecrackers. But Orm felt completely still. She had slipped away from her aunts, cousins, and her mother, and now sat alone on the edge of the koi pond near the back of the property. She curled her arms around her knees and rested her chin there, staring blankly at the orange fish gliding beneath the surface. This was supposed to be her engagement party. The night where everything came together, where her lie had reached its glittering peak. But somewhere along the way, the fake had become real. Ling had become real. And now she was gone. Orm's reflection in the water looked tired, haunted. Her dress, beautiful, perfectly fitted, felt like a costume. The diamond ring on her finger, a prop. Everything felt wrong without Ling beside her. The memory of her walking away replayed on loop, her back rigid, her steps precise, as if holding herself together by sheer will. She hadn't looked back. That hurt more than anything. Orm wrapped her arms tighter around herself. "I ruined it," she whispered to the fish, to the night, to no one. She had spent weeks building a lie convincing enough to fool her family. But in the end, the only one truly fooled was her. She thought keeping her feelings buried would keep her safe, that if she didn't name it, she couldn't lose it. But love didn't work like that. Love had its own rules, its own gravity. And now she was left behind, in the wreckage of her own denial. A single tear slipped down her cheek. She let it fall, too tired to wipe it away. "I didn't even get to tell her I loved her," she whispered. "And I do, God, I do." The koi stirred beneath the surface. The moonlight shimmered. And still, Orm sat there, alone. She pulled off the ring and held it in her palm. It sparkled under the garden lights, catching reflections of a future that might never happen. Her fingers closed around it, not ready to let go, but not ready to believe in it either. She could still remember the first time Ling had kissed her, the heat, the sureness, the way her hands had cradled Orm's face like she was something breakable, sacred. And Orm had let herself believe, for just a moment, that someone could love her like that. It hadn't been fake. None of it had. Ling had given everything, her touch, her jealousy, her patience, her unwavering care. She had carried their lies so convincingly because, for her, it had become truth. And Orm had run. She wiped her cheeks, but the tears kept coming. They weren't loud, heaving sobs, just a quiet stream, steady and unstoppable. A soft grief that curled around her like fog. She wasn't sure how long she sat there. At some point the music shifted to something slow, jazzy. Guests were dancing under the gazebo, spinning in pairs beneath a tangle of lights. Orm used to think she hated cheesy romantic things, but now she wanted nothing more than to dance barefoot with Ling under the stars, to whisper sorry against her neck, to start again. But Ling was gone. She closed her eyes. The night air was cool against her damp skin. She imagined what Ling would say if she saw her like this, curled up, miserable, finally honest. "You idiot," Ling would tease. "You should have told me." "I was scared," Orm would reply. And maybe, just maybe, Ling would say, "So was I." But the conversation was all in her head. The real Ling was out there somewhere, no longer pretending, and Orm, who had wasted her chance, was left behind. Let's just pretend. Chapter 11, Part 1. Orm had never known silence like this. The mansion, usually humming with laughter, footsteps, clinking dishes, and distant calls from her aunts or cousins, felt frozen. It wasn't really quiet. Her mother was on the phone in the garden, her father in a meeting on the patio, her aunt bickering with the decorator about lilies versus orchids. But to Orm, it was suffocatingly still. Ling wasn't there. That was what mattered. She hadn't slept. Not really. She'd curled up in bed facing the wall Ling used to sleep against, feeling the coldness of the empty space behind her. When she reached out once in the night, forgetting, her hand landed on rumpled sheets instead of warm skin. It was like waking up to grief. Ling hadn't messaged. Not a word since she walked out of the engagement party in silence, her jaw locked, her eyes unreadable for the first time since they were teens. And Orm had let her go. Now, alone in the bedroom that still smelled like Ling, spicy perfume and minty shampoo, Orm wrapped her arms around a pillow and finally let herself admit the one thing she had fought tooth and nail to deny. I love her. The words came out of nowhere, hoarse and trembling, her heart clenched so hard it hurt. She sat up. Her reflection in the full-length mirror across the room startled her, pale face, swollen eyes, hair in a mess. She looked wrecked. Her family tiptoed around her, pretending not to notice, but she saw the pity in their eyes. Everyone knew. Everyone had known before her. Of course they did. They saw how Ling looked at her, how she took care of her, how she stepped between her and the world without being asked. And they saw Orm, snapping at her, teasing her, pretending not to care when she couldn't stop watching Ling out of the corner of her eye. She thought she was protecting something, that keeping it all as just friends would save her from heartbreak. Ling had always been a player, right? Everyone joked about it, even Ling. She never dated seriously, never stuck around. So Orm decided a long time ago that being Ling's best friend was better than being a broken ex. But somewhere along the way, Ling stopped playing, and Orm hadn't noticed, or hadn't let herself. "Stupid," she whispered, burying her face in her hands. "You idiot." She remembered her mother's words. You weren't fooling anyone but yourself. The sting of that truth landed like a slap. How long had she been lying to herself? Was it when Ling touched her waist in front of her grandfather? When she whispered dirty things to her behind her aunt's back? Or was it when she held her hand in the dark and Orm felt her chest squeeze like she couldn't breathe? She thought it was just the act, but it was never fake. Not from Ling. A knock on the door startled her. Her younger cousin peeked in with a bowl of fruit. "You haven't eaten." Orm shook her head, forcing a small smile. "I'm okay." "No, you're not," the kid said bluntly, dropping the bowl on her lap anyway. "You should go get her." And just like that, Orm realized there was still time. She wasn't going to make the same mistake again. She was going to fight for her. She stood up abruptly. Her legs were shaky, her muscles tight from a night of restless tossing, but her mind was finally clear. Ling hadn't blocked her. That meant something, right? Maybe she wasn't ready to talk, but she hadn't shut the door completely. Orm could work with that. She crossed the room to Ling's drawer, the one she hadn't opened since she left. Inside were a few t-shirts, a phone charger, a half-used lip balm. She picked up the lip balm and pressed it to her chest, like it could somehow transfer all her regrets to the space where Ling used to be. "I'm going to get you back," she whispered, "even if it kills me." For once, the idea didn't terrify her. Because losing Ling forever? That would be worse. Let's just pretend. Chapter 11, Part 2. Orm didn't rush. For once, she wanted to do things right. She knew where Ling would be. Her childhood home tucked near the edge of town, the one with the overgrown fence and the noisy parrot that yelled curse words from its porch swing. Ling's mom raised rescue animals, so Orm wasn't surprised to find a muddy paw print on the gate when she arrived. She rang the bell, heart pounding in her throat. The parrot shrieked something that sounded suspiciously like, "Whore!" and she rolled her eyes. "Missed you too, Abu." It was Ling's mother who opened the door. Her warm smile faded a little when she saw Orm. "She's in the back," she said quietly. "She's not great." Orm nodded, her stomach twisting. "I'll be gentle." The backyard hadn't changed. Same sagging deck, same tire swings swaying in the breeze. And there, in the grass, surrounded by 3 dogs and a fat cat who clearly didn't want to be included, sat Ling. She was tossing a ball, watching one of the mutts chase it with only half her usual amusement. She looked tired, like the fight had drained something from her. Orm didn't speak. She sat on the step and waited. Ling finally looked up, dark eyes unreadable. "You here to twist the knife a little more?" "No," Orm said softly. "I'm here because I miss you." Ling scoffed. "You made it clear how fake everything was." "I was scared," Orm said. "Not of you, of losing you, because I knew if I ever crossed that line, if I ever touched what we had, I'd never recover from losing it." Ling blinked slowly. "So you thought pretending was safer. I thought friendship was the only part of you I could keep, but now I know that keeping you halfway meant losing you completely." One of the dogs climbed into Orm's lap. She stroked its fur absently, gaze steady. "I love you," she said. "I've probably loved you since you chased away that girl in 9th grade who made fun of my laugh. I just didn't admit it until you weren't there." Ling didn't answer. She stood and walked to the far fence, then back again. Finally, she knelt in front of Orm. "Say it again." Orm's voice shook, but she didn't look away. "I love you." Ling cupped her cheek. "You broke my heart." "I know," Orm whispered. "But I'll spend the rest of my life putting it back together, if you let me." Ling leaned in slowly, as if testing the air, like the kiss might shatter something if done too fast. But when their lips met, it wasn't fireworks. It was gravity. Gentle, inevitable, home. They kissed for a long time under the shade of the mango tree, with dogs yipping and Abu squawking "slut" into the wind like a blessing. And finally, Ling pulled back and said, "Let's go home." Orm didn't expect forgiveness in a day. What mattered was being allowed to try. As they walked through the back gate toward Ling's old pickup truck, Ling didn't hold her hand, but she didn't pull away when their fingers brushed. It was something. A beginning. Inside the truck, Abu's voice echoed one more insult from his swing, making Ling smirk for the first time in days. "God, I missed that bird," Orm muttered. "Abu missed you too," Ling replied, half smiling. That was his version of love. They drove in silence most of the way home, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Ling's hand rested near the gear shift. Orm's fingers inched closer. Eventually, they touched. Ling let them stay there. It wasn't a grand reconciliation, but Orm didn't want grand. She wanted real. Let's just pretend. Chapter 11, Part 3. The mansion buzzed with low chatter when they returned. Orm hesitated at the front door, not because she was afraid of walking in with Ling, but because she wasn't sure how to carry herself anymore. Were they still pretending? Did her family expect an explanation? Did she owe them one? But as they stepped into the grand hallway with its high ceilings and ornate floral arrangements, Orm saw something she hadn't expected. Warmth. No awkward glances. No judgment. Just smiles. Her aunt popped out of the kitchen, waving a wooden spoon. "Oh, good! The runaway bride is back." Orm blinked. "You... what?" Her mother stepped around the corner, arms crossed, amused. "Did you really think we didn't know?" Ling arched a brow at Orm. "Told you." Orm flushed. "Wait, how long have you all known?" "Since week 1, her uncle said as he walked by carrying a tray of glasses. "Ploy overheard your conversation on the terrace. She told me, I told your mom, and then it sort of spread." "I told you we shouldn't have whispered," Ling said under her breath, nudging Orm's side. Orm was still processing when her grandmother waddled into the room with her knitting bag. "You children think you're so clever," she said, eyes twinkling, "but love makes you obvious." That was when Orm realized her mistake hadn't been pretending with her family. It had been pretending with herself. She glanced at Ling, who was trying to look smug but failing because her ears were turning pink. "I made such a fool of myself," Orm murmured. "No," her mom said gently, stepping forward to take her hand. "You were scared, but you figured it out, and you didn't let pride get in the way. That's love, Orm." Her father nodded from the dining room, raising his coffee mug like a toast. Ling cleared her throat. "So, do I still have a room here? Or was that part of the ruse?" Orm looked up, eyes suddenly stinging. "You're not just staying here. You're mine." That silenced everyone. For a beat, not a sound was heard. Then her grandfather whooped. "There we go!" Orm grabbed Ling's hand and tugged her toward the stairs before she could combust from embarrassment. "Come on, before they break out the wedding plans again." They ran upstairs, giggling like they were 15 again, both flushed and breathless, and finally, on the same page. Back in Orm's room, she collapsed onto the bed and sighed deeply. Ling hovered near the door, unsure. Orm patted the mattress. "Get over here." Ling joined her slowly, shoes kicked off, legs curling beneath her. They lay in silence for a while, facing the ceiling, the buzz of the household muffled behind closed doors. "I really thought I lost you," Orm said. "You almost did," Ling replied, honest but gentle. "That's fair. But," Ling added, turning to face her, "you came back. You didn't have to. You could have just let it die quietly and moved on." "I could never move on from you." Ling brushed her fingers along Orm's knuckles. "You have no idea what it did to me, hearing you say our relationship was fake. I thought I was ready for it. I wasn't." Orm turned her hand over and threaded their fingers together. "It was never fake. I just didn't have the courage to tell the truth." Ling leaned in, her forehead resting against Orm's. "You're telling it now." Orm smiled. "Better late than never?" "Barely," Ling smirked. "But I'll take it." Downstairs, someone was shouting for extra chairs and asking where the champagne flutes went. Orm closed her eyes and let herself exist in this small, still moment where everything was finally starting to feel real. Let's just pretend. Chapter 11, Part 4. Later that afternoon, they sat side by side on the porch swing, Ling nursing a soda, Orm stealing sips and pretending she didn't have her own. The air was thick with midsummer heat, bees buzzing near the potted flowers, distant clinks of silverware and party preparations echoing inside. "You know what I still don't get?" Orm said, nudging Ling with her shoulder. "Why me?" Ling glanced at her, eyes steady. "Why not you? I mean, you've had options." Orm made a face. "Too many. You could have had anyone." Ling looked out at the garden, expression turning thoughtful. "Yeah, but they weren't you." "That's not an answer. I didn't want a fling, not anymore, not with you, so I never let it happen, not even once." Orm raised a brow. "Not even when we shared a bed every night?" "You have no idea how hard that was," Ling muttered, cheeks pinking. Orm grinned. "So what changed?" Ling finally turned to face her fully. You changed. You let me in. For real this time. I didn't want 100 maybes when I could have one you." That made Orm quiet. She toyed with the edge of her shirt, unsure how to put her thoughts into words. "I always thought, if I tried something serious with you, I'd ruin it. That you'd lose interest. Go back to one of your flings." Ling reached over and took her hand. "You're the only one who made me want more than that. I just didn't think you'd ever see me that way." "I always saw you," Orm whispered. "That's why it scared me." They sat like that for a while, hands clasped, foreheads nearly touching, silence folding over them like a soft blanket. Then Ling smiled. "You know what would really prove you love me?" Orm narrowed her eyes. "If this is about the last slice of pie, the answer is no." Ling laughed. "Nah, I was gonna say, let me pick our engagement party song." Orm groaned. God help us all. Too late, I already chose it. Orm gave her a sidelong look. Dare I ask? Ling wiggled her eyebrows. It's a surprise. Orm sighed. Just promise it's not that cheesy duet you played last month. Ling only grinned wider. No promises. Orm flopped dramatically against her shoulder. I'm going to regret this, aren't I? Probably. But Orm didn't regret anything. Not the lies, not the pretending, not even the fight, because every step had led them here, where real love had finally taken root. That night, while brushing her teeth beside Ling in the shared ensuite bathroom, Orm caught herself smiling at the way their arms brushed, the comfort of their rhythm. Ling moved to spit, and Orm stole another glance in the mirror. Her best friend, now somehow her almost wife, laughing at toothpaste foam. When they got into bed, Orm turned on her side to face Ling. Do you really think we can do this? Ling's answer was immediate. I know we can. Orm hesitated. Even when I get stubborn and overthink everything. Ling kissed her forehead. Especially then. They didn't say more. The lamp clicked off, but this time there were no walls between them. Just warmth, steady breathing, and quiet understanding. Before falling asleep, Orm whispered into the dark. You know, I never said it out loud. Ling turned toward her, voice gentle. Said what? That I love you. The silence stretched just a beat longer than Orm could bear, until Ling's hand reached for hers under the blanket, fingers curling tight. I know, Ling murmured, but hearing it still means everything. Orm smiled into the pillow. Good, because I do. I really, really do. Good, Ling echoed, because I'm not going anywhere. And for the first time in a long time, Orm believed her. Let's just pretend. Chapter 11, Part 5. The next morning, the house was already buzzing with activity. Orm stood by the upstairs railing, watching caterers come in and out through the main doors with trays, decorations, and flowers. The engagement party preparations were in full swing, and even though the event had once felt like a silly charade, today it felt like the beginning of something real. She descended the stairs slowly, breathing in the scent of jasmine and rose from the floral arrangements. Her mother was in the dining room barking orders at the decorators, her brother was adjusting his bow tie in a mirror, and her aunt was sneakily eating strawberries from a platter meant for the guests. Everything was chaotic, everything was perfect. Orm spotted Ling in the living room with her shirt half-buttoned, sleeves rolled up as she helped arrange the centerpieces. She looked up at Orm as if sensing her gaze. Their eyes met. Ling grinned. About time you woke up, fiancé, Ling teased. Orm's heart gave a little jump at the word. Don't get used to calling me that unless you mean it. Ling crossed the room in 3 easy strides, pulling her close. I always mean it. Someone coughed dramatically nearby. It was Orm's grandmother. Don't mind me, carry on. Orm pulled away, blushing. Ling only chuckled. Guests began to arrive in waves, family friends, distant cousins, people Orm hadn't seen in years. She smiled, accepted hugs and compliments, all while keeping one eye on Ling, who moved easily from group to group, charming everyone with practiced grace and that trademark unreadable confidence. Orm couldn't believe she had ever doubted that this woman might not want something real. A family friend leaned in and whispered, You two look good together, real good. Orm smiled. Thanks, we are. As the day wore on, Ling finally pulled her aside during a lull. You ready for the toasts? No, Orm said flatly. Should I be? Ling smiled and held out her hand. Just stay by my side. That's all I need. They stepped up onto the patio where everyone had gathered with glasses raised. Orm squeezed Ling's hand. She wasn't pretending anymore. Ling raised her glass. To Orm, she said, her voice carrying with an effortless confidence that made Orm's stomach flutter. The girl who pretended to be my fiancé, until it stopped being pretend. The crowd laughed warmly. Orm's cheeks flamed. Ling continued. She once asked me why I picked her, why I never dated seriously until now. I never answered her. Orm tensed, curious. Ling turned to face her directly. The answer is simple. I was waiting for someone who made me feel like home. A collective awe rippled through the audience. Orm blinked back the sudden heat in her eyes. Ling leaned in and whispered, "Did I win the toast war?" "You obliterated me," Orm whispered back. Later, as they danced slowly under the garden lights, Orm laid her head on Ling's shoulder. Everything felt like it was exactly as it should be. She was exactly where she belonged. As the night deepened, Orm's mother pulled her aside to fix her hair, and her grandmother handed her a slice of cake with a wink. Orm laughed, looking out over the crowd. Ling was by the gazebo, caught in conversation with one of Orm's aunts, effortlessly holding court with a glass of sparkling cider in hand. She looked over, and when their eyes met, she excused herself and walked straight back to Orm. "You okay?" Ling asked softly. Orm nodded. "Just overwhelmed, but happy." Ling touched her cheek. "Then let's take a minute." They slipped away from the noise, back into the quiet of the house. Ling pulled her close, arms wrapping around her in a slow, grounding hug. "No more pretending," Orm whispered. Ling pressed a kiss to her temple. Never again. And this time, Orm believed it with her whole heart.